A disruptive burst of chaos throws everything off balance. The usual school life is harshly derailed when the entire class suddenly finds itself in another world. Amid the clamor of confusion, Princess Philine Royal attire presses Lord Gerudo, forcing him to hold on while he chokes on tension, trying to expel a complex magical sigil. The vision continues. Gerudo shudders in shock as his old friend is bound by radiant magical chain screams, and they transform her into his familiar. Thus begins their journey to another world. And the scene sharply shifts to the mundane reality of today. Students come to school for another ordinary day. In the noisy classroom, one boy is completely immersed in manga and even exclaims how cool it is, especially the moment where the mage dies. A loud spoiler unsettles another student, Haruto Tsutsui. He looks up irritably. The one who shouted is Yogai Nanba, a popular student known for his lack of tact. Now another classmate approaches him and asks about manga. Outside the room, Mina Mochizuki and Karen Hino interrupt Yogai. He asks when they will finally go for a walk. Hino brushes him off, covering with duties in the basketball club, then cuts off everything with a confident boast. Supposedly, he is talented at this. Ignoring him, Mina turns and goes to Gerudo's table, asking if he has a second sheet. She stands opposite him with a stern expression and extends a simple white envelope, asking him to give it to her mother. First formally toots Suiquin, then quietly correcting to the more familiar Haru. He responds with a completely bewildered look. Her confusion seems to mirror Yohei Namba's irritation. Sitting in place, he squints crookedly and grumbles about what kind of story they have, and Gerudo manages only a hesitant Soundjinable to process the question. Another classmate, Megumi, explains to a friend that Haruto and Mina are childhood friends, and this information only adds fuel to Yohei Namba. He grumbles that even some loser like Haruto has his privileges, and his friend Sho calmly tells him to sit back down. After exchanging words, Mina steps away from the table and stands by the window. An unspeakable pause falls between them as Yohei Namba watches her leave, anxiety appearing on his face. His thoughts are interrupted by Sho. She leans over and quietly notes that he and Mochizuki-san look rather awkward to the childhood friends. He got lost in thought and chewed over his own awkwardness next to Mina until classmate Karen leaned in from the side and slid a wry smile. She noticed that if she had been friends since childhood with a beauty like Mina, she would simply shine with joy. And then her gaze caught Nanban. She ordered him to understand his place among social outcasts. From these words, Gerudo remembered how close he and Mina once were. As if sensing his thoughts, Mina looks back over her shoulder from behind her desk. Her face is stern without any expression. Without a word, she abruptly stands up and disappears from sight. Her heels strike the floor sharply and dryly. Another classmate exclaims her name in surprise, but Mina does not stop. At that very moment, the whole class starts shaking wildly. The students scream in fright, wondering if it is an earthquake, and Gerudo instinctively shouts to Karen, "Hold on to something to save yourself." A harsh trembling blow knocks Mina off her feet and pushes her swaying right into Gerudo's arms. He catches her, and for a second they find themselves face to face. Shock and vulnerability intertwine in her gaze in a single moment. She quietly asks if he hates their situation that much. In a sudden flash of light, everything disappears, the familiar classroom. Students huddle on the cold stone floor in the dim chamber. Before them, a mysterious figure in a hood holding a large round artifact with flickering, intricate runes. He scans everyone with his gaze. Shock cuts through the nerves, and thoughts after these sudden changes cannot come together. Nanba voices what is spinning in everyone's head. "Where are we?" And another student, staring in stunned disbelief, exclaims about the colossal number of people gathered here. Two figures emerge from the shadows. One is a young woman in majestic attire. She looks at the students with pain in her eyes and whispers that this cannot be. They are stunned by her beauty. Beside her is an older man, scarred and clad in armor, who addresses her as princess and urges her to explain to the heroes what is happening. She takes a step forward, pulls herself together, calmly and clearly greets everyone, introduces herself. Philia Elmond, the first princess of the Kingdom of Elmond. Her words hang in the air. Gerudo and Karen exchange glances and cannot believe it. "The Kingdom of Elmond?" Karen repeats, having never heard of such a place. While the other students whisper in confusion, Gerudo puzzles over how this could even be, and a faint magical glow flickers between his palms. Standing before the gathered students, Princess Philia solemnly addresses them from a luxurious balcony above a fantastic city. She confirms their suspicions. This is a world different from theirs, and, relying on ancient legends, she has summoned every Anito become heroes in service. Her words roll through the crowd like a shockwave. Haruto freezes in shock, a phrase born from another world echoes in his head. Nearby, Karen Hino looks happish, says it's incredibly exciting and that everything is just like in the story she read. She asks Haruto what powers he has, but he can only squeeze out, "No." Another student trembles and asks aloud, what does she even mean by heroes? The students' reactions scatter in all directions. Yogi Nanba waves off angrily. He says this is complete nonsense, which he has already heard in manga, so he asks his classmates to calm down. But Sho remains cold-blooded and thinks, no trick could transport their entire class. He gestures to the sky and reminds Nebai about the dragons they saw, proving that without real magic this is impossible. When reality settles a bit, Karen quietly approaches the silent Haruto and suggests, since everyone is so concerned about home, let them try to enjoy themselves right now. Princess Philia immediately clarifies their situation. According to legend, they will be able to return to their world once the mission is completed. The word mission instantly excites Nambu, who demands to know if they are expected to kill the demon lord or something similar. Her face turning grave and Philia confirm his fears. She says that every few hundred years, their country is forced to summon heroes to withstand threats that are deadly to the entire continent. She explains, the threats are different each time, because legends say once they summon past heroes to kill fierce dragons or defeat mighty demon lords. Bringing these words to the present, Philia sadly admits, they still do not know what the current threat is. This revelation is overwhelming and shocking, and Namaba is especially furious, exploding with an outraged scream. Realizing that until they solve the unknown problem, they cannot return home, Philia can only offer a sincere apology, and the senior knight beside her remarks on the astonishingly large number of heroes, where at that moment, a man in formal military uniform arrives. Philia immediately recognizes him as her brother. He introduces himself to the crowd, Rosius Elmond, the first prince of the kingdom. Confidently smiling, he surveys the large group of students, and quietly tells him that the group is unusually large, usually only one hero is summoned. His appearance causes the show to step forward and directly challenge him. He puts on glasses and asks if the royal family can provide proper hospitality for so many people. He states their complaints. They were summoned against their will and now are required to complete an unknown mission to return home, all without any reward. He insists on good treatment, and his tone echoes among the other students in the crowd. Before the prince can respond, Namba explodes with rage. He growls, "Watch your tongue," and asks who he is to make such demands. Then his anger shifts to the new surroundings. He contemptuously mutters that everything here looks low-tech and loudly wonders if this world even its baths is. Outbursts of anger were a familiar sight to classmates. Karen Hino told Gerudo that Namba constantly looks for a fight, while the class president tried to calm the conflict, insisting that as a hero, he must act with respect. Before the quarrel could escalate, Prince Rosius calmly intervened, placing his hand on Namba's shoulder. At that moment, he gave everyone a mocking smile and assured the summoned students that they were in no danger. The rude, aggressive boy was completely taken aback. Namba twitched and tried to shake off the prince's grip. He asked to be released, already embarrassed by the fact that a close person was standing nearby. Prince Rosius did not move an inch. He held even tighter, smiled, and promised to take all arrangements upon himself, then directly asked if Namba would refuse to listen. The prince's question was filled with oppressive, tangible pressure. It covered the entire group of students. They shuddered in unison, their faces twisted with fear and shock. Having no strength to resist the invisible force, Namba eventually broke down and, stammering, admitted his agreement. Prince Rosius addresses the gathered students. His voice drowns out the crowd. He says he does not know what wishes people from another world might have. In response, a girl named Megumi enthusiastically raises her hand and shouts that she is here. The prince immediately recognizes her, calls her by name. With a confident, almost predatory smile, he extends his glove to her and utters a simple yet shocking request: to come to his room that night. His invitation confuses the students and shocks them like a wave. They whisper about the strange demand, some even ask, why his room specifically? But the prince immediately cuts off their doubts, stating that being summoned there is a great honor. Then he seems to reluctantly admit he doesn't have many choices. He explains that the summoning works only when the intention is mutual, and among them someone must have the will to save this world. He advises not to rush and promises those who act as they should will receive a reward. Taking advantage of the pause, Megumi excitedly asks if this means they can use magic and will have special powers. The prince confirms her hopes with dramatic flair, and a ball of fire flares up in his palm. He adds, besides magic, they were also given powers called skills. The revelation takes the students' breath away, even Karen with wide-open eyes and the surprised Haruto. He reveals the conditions in even more detail. The summoned heroes will have physical abilities that far exceed the standards of this world besides the acquired skills. Holding an uncertain confidence in the darkness, he asks if this is a chance for conversion. His words ignite a real fire of excitement among the students. Namba throws his head back and shouts, demanding to be told what power he has. Others notice. Their bodies have become lighter and their hopes for strong skills and a chance to use magic burst out. Karen looks at her friend and quietly states, even Haruto is getting worked up. When the crowd's excitement reaches its peak, Prince Roja turns to his sister Princess Philia. He declares that assessing abilities is her task and officially assigns her the duty. Philia just nods and without any pause is immediately ready to start. In response, in the air right before her own eye, a complex, radiant sigil in the shape of an eye flares up. It flickers and pulses with hidden power. The sigil activates and before each student glowing panels with text and symbols light up, revealing their new abilities. The students freeze in amazement and confusion, while Philia reviews the results and declares, as befits heroes, each of them has wonderful skills. She explains, since all the students are from a world where there are neither skills nor magic, it's best to show everything by example. Yoita Namba, excitement on his face, impatiently asks what power he has. The princess turns to him and confirms, his power is truly incredible. Despite the praise for Yoita, she continues to look directly at Haruto Tsutsui and asks if he objects to helping them. Haruto at that moment freezes, completely confused, only tremblingly muttering that he's not sure if she is even addressing him. He remains stunned, but Princess Philia explains, his power is truly impressive, so he is perfect for the demonstration. This choice infuriates Yohei wildly. He loudly resists and demands that they use him, not this loser. The sharp gaze of Prince Rosius from the side cuts him off and Yohei is ordered to forget about it. When the outcry subsides, Philia leads the hesitant Haruto away from the other students. He nervously asks what exactly he needs to do to help, and she only commands, look at what is before you. His gaze slides after her gesture and suddenly, in deep shock, his eyes open wide at what he sees. Above them towers a huge reinforced cage. Inside, a gigantic striped beast stirs, rattling the bars with powerful movements. The beast raises its head and the world explodes with the furious maw of a huge white tiger. Its eyes burn with wild rage. Startled, another student stammers, whispering in fear and awe. Princess Philia calmly names the creature Rigel. She explains, even at such a young age, this is a monster of rank B, equivalent to 100 soldiers, and when fully grown it will become a dangerous beast capable of matching a dragon. A terrible feeling washes over Gerudo as he begins to understand everything. Prince Rosius notes, the hero's strength would usually be useless against such a high-rank opponent, but thanks to Lord Gerudo's special skill, he must manage barely to use it. At this hint, Gerudo freezes silently without a word. Suddenly he is pushed forward while Philia orders him to extend his hand to Rigel. The cage door crashes open, the beast shudders, its roar cuts the air and Gerudo in despair begs them to wait. He trembles before the roaring Rigel, his face a complete mask of fear. A voice reassures, the power can be activated simply by saying the right word, but Gerudo only stammers, forcing them to wait. Having no other choice, he thrust his hands forward and behind him a bright magical seal flared up. Then a single command sounded, submit. The word thundered with force. The flickering runes on the cage's magical lock flashed with blinding light, and before the lock could hold, everything shattered to pieces. A wave of energy covers the gathered students, and Haruto remains alone before the cage. He lowers his gaze to his own hands, reverence spreading across his face. He understands what incredible power he has just unleashed. Rigel's sharp roar fades and turns into a dull, threatening growl. When the cage door dissolves, Haruto shudders. The lock seems to have never existed, it vanished completely. To everyone's surprise, the now completely obedient beast steps outside and gently rubs its head against Gerudo's side, purring with pleasure. His classmates just freeze. What they see defies all understanding. Rigel playfully pushes Gerudo to the ground and begins licking his face. While he lies stunned, Princess Philia watches with a smile as if she already understands everything. She says that the hero should have enough strength to make anyone submit, and her thoughts linger on what such an ability might mean. Haruto Tsutsui and his classmates were suddenly summoned to another world, and the hero's mission, which was supposed to fight an inevitable catastrophe, immediately became obvious. In this new reality, Haruto received a unique power, the Tame skill, which allows controlling monsters. His first trial is a formidable beast resembling a tiger. Standing before the creature, Princess Philia noticed, having the hero's power, he should be able to make any opponent surrender. Nearby, Minamachizuki watched the clash without taking his eyes off, with deep anxiety. The tense moment passes. Gerudo's skill worked, and now he calmly sits on the stone floor, gently stroking the huge, tamed tiger. From afar, Mina, Karen Hino, and Princess Philia observe him. Karen approached him, impressed that he had completely tamed the beast. Gerudo noticed. The creature is amazingly cute, so Karen nudged him to give the new familiar a name. He pondered for a moment over Reidu because of the tiger resemblance, but quickly rejected the option, too unoriginal. While they were negotiating, Yohei Namba urged Karen to demonstrate her talent for the princess, but another student quickly noted that he had already checked everything. Then Karen revealed her own ability synthesis and explained, she simply makes everything more skillful in mixing. Although it seemed ordinary to her, Gerudo encouraged her, confident she would master it. and Namba's thoughts blurred. He had no idea what powers his other classmates might hide. As if it was exactly what was needed, Namba rushed forward with a roar. He revealed his power physical enhancement and with one blow broke through a thick stone wall. He stepped aside, admiring what he had done, and it was clear. His own simple yet powerful skill warmed him. Satisfied with the spectacle, he boldly went to show off and, smirking arrogantly, asked what skill he was given, doubting it was worse than his own. He showed only a calm face, but clearly, he just warned him to step back. The explanation of the warning came immediately. A large piece of stone, torn off by Namba's earlier strike, fell from above and hit another student right on the head. Namba froze in shock when the student screamed in pain. When Karen rushed to treat the injury, Namba suddenly realized she needed a healing skill. Sho, watching from afar, adjusted his glasses and immediately understood what he had just seen. His own skill future sight allowed him to glimpse moments of the future. Meanwhile, Philia told Mina that her magical enhancement is an incredible skill of the highest level, on par with Namba's physical strength. Mina responded only with a quiet sigh. Seeing this, Karen turned to Gerudo and asked why Mina was so distant and whether it was because they had been friends since childhood. Gerudo gloomily admitted too much time had passed and now she avoids him. The focus of the test shifts. Yohei Namba, self-satisfied, suggests the next demonstration Mina Mochizuki and puts her on the spot right now. Princess Philia orders her to shoot a spell at the training target, but Mina hesitates, confessing she has never used magic. Then Philia corrects the instruction. She tells Mina to first imagine the element of fire. To prove her point, Princess Philia herself unleashes a powerful magical blast hitting the target with such force that it starts to smoke. Other students freeze in awe, whispering whether the princess always acts so recklessly and noting the broad-mindedness of the nobility. Looking at the scoreboard, Namba smiles and declares that he understands how it works. He stretches out his handon. The fire begins to flicker, born right in the air. Mina freezes in surprise and Philia, excited, shouts to him, "Wait." His confidence proves premature. A small flame instantly bursts into an uncontrollable hellfire. Other students scream in fear from the sudden, fierce heat. Unceasingly, they shout at him to extinguish it as quickly as possible. Clinging to the flame he himself ignited, Namba instantly casts another spell, Aqua Ring. A huge stream of water bursts out, and the fire is extinguished by a loud, hissing wave that washes away everything in its path. When the couple disperses, Prince Russia steps forward with an unshakable smile. He tells the students not to worry and confidently adds, "He is here and will handle any situation if it suddenly gets out of control." Several girls look at him admiringly, but his presence hardly relieves the tension. From the crowd, Haruto calls Mina, encourages her, and promises to take control if something goes wrong. But before she can respond, Namba aggressively grabs her wrist, pushes her forward, and yells for her to finally do it. The forceful strike triggers something catastrophic. A gigantic, glowing magical circle bursts from the floor, covering Mina. She screams as wild power tears upward, and the shockwave during activation hurls other students backward into the air. While chaos covers the hall, Prince Rosius remains calm, but his composure suddenly cracks. He recognizes the phenomenon immediately and shouts that reason is going mad with a deaf, urgent immediacy. He orders everyone to restrain the hero, and Gerudo watches in helpless frenzy. A powerful magic circle flares up and comes to life, trapping Mina within its flickering bounds. On one side, Gerudo strains all his strength against the incredible energy, recognizes it, a power that can belong only to a hero. He understands that if this continues, both of them, him and Mina, will be overwhelmed by a wave while she screams in pain. When energy rises in a wave, Princess Philia flares with anxiety. She already knows, if Gerudo uses the hero's skill, someone will be chosen as a target. Suddenly, a sharp pain rolls over her and she bolts from the spot with a scream. She convulsively turns to the students and pleadingly calls out the name Gerudo, saying it aloud. He looks around sharply, surprised, because he hears Philia and Mina calling him amid the chaos. His classmates, especially Karen and Namba, can only watch. Confusion and anxiety carve themselves onto their faces as they shift their gaze to him. Namba steps forward and begins interrogating Gerudo about the tame ability. He equates it to brainwashing, proving that it will turn Mina into a mindless pet like his own tiger companion. While Philia urges Gerudo on, he suddenly realizes the terrible truth. If this continues, the mana will consume Mina and turn her into a monster. He stretches time, struggling with morality to turn a person into a familiar. Fingers clench into a fist as he watches Mina break free from the devastating magical force. His hesitation is interrupted by Karen. She grabs his shoulder and shouts that there is no time to hesitate. Seeing the torment on Mina's face, Haruto presses his lips and resolutely prepares himself. He suddenly jumps up to Princess Philia, takes her hand, and asks if the process is the same as when he tamed his familiar Rai. She confirms, exactly the same, absolutely the same at a distance. The prince watches, smiles contentedly, and thanks Haruto for the continuation. Facing Mina, he steels himself and summons a skill, shouting the command, Tame. A colossal pressure bursts from the magic circle, forcing him to dig into the ground and hold on against the force that is about to blow him away. When he struggles convulsively, Philly approaches from behind and strengthens him with her own power. She encourages him, let him go further because they are already very close. Below, Mina rides in pain, calling his name for the last time every week, while the prince watches everything with cold indifference. When he poured his will into the ritual, a distant memory surfaced, a square under the evening sky. Younger Mina stood nearby, her head bowed, and she was apologizing for what seemed to her purely her fault. He very gently placed his hand on her head, softly calming her, everything is fine. And with that unbreakable childlike certainty, he gave a solemn promisito always protect her. The oath echoed in the present and ignited determination. A desperate cry burst from his chest and he declared that he would definitely fulfill this promise. His words tore out the last, blinding surge of power. The doomed spectators rushed in horror to cover their eyes. The light went out and Gerudo appeared before them. Kneeling on the ground, she held Minasno motionless. The burning, chaotic flashes around them melted away and vanished without a trace. He jerked his head up, breathing heavily and drenched in sweat. When Princess Philly's voice cut through the stunning silence, she loudly announced to the crowd that the hero Haruto had succeeded. Lady Mina's taming was over. The realization that the mastered skill had worked on people swept like a wave among the other students. While Gerudo was absorbing this, something was already stirring in me in response. His eyes widened, but the gaze was empty, merciless. A pained breath escaped from his temples as he looked at the face of the friend he had saved. Perhaps, but at the same time lost. On the training grounds of New World, Karen Hino notices Gerudo Tsutsui's depressed mood. She warns that if he keeps sighing, luck will run out. Gerudo grimly replies that, in his opinion, it has already disappeared. And when she playfully asks who took it, his face darkens and he sharply cuts her off. If she says that again, he will stab her. Several days have passed since the students were called. Their new life is almost no different from the old one. In the morning, lectures on history, missions, and economics, and in the afternoon, practical magic and combat training. And as befits heroes, they quickly outgrow the skills of royal knights and mages. But during sparring, Haruto lets out another heavy sigh each time. His distraction costs him dearly. During the exercise, he is thrown to the ground. His classmates, including Karen and Mina, watch from afar. Karen notices everyone is afraid that he will use his tamed ability on them now that they know it works on people. Haruto directly asks her if she is not afraid that he will tame her. She brushes off the fear. After all, without him, she has no one to talk to, so let him be with Mina. In memory of her name, Mina approaches and asks what happened. Haruto freezes in thought. Even she behaves differently. Since that event occurred, Mina has not left his side for a step, neither here nor back in their old school. He clearly understands. The subdued ability most likely erased the former hostility in her. An unpleasant consequence is that now he attracts the attention of the most beautiful girl in the class, so other boys cast looks at him that can easily lead to trouble. Princess Philia reported that there is no known way to remove the effect, so he has to find a way out himself. While she watches him, Mina gets a chance. She honestly admits to herself, too tense to be natural next to him now. But she can just attribute her strange behavior to the calming effect. And with this decision, she reaches out her hand to take his hand. Her attack cuts off the president's arrival. He loudly calls Karen and teases her for having pickled cucumbers from the other world in her lunch. Gerudo wonders why at all, but the president brushes it off. Mina watches them and catches herself in an old jealousy of Karen, the girl who is always beside Gerudo. She agrees, Karen is a good person. That is why Mina cannot let her guard down. Her inner assessment continues as she thinks. Karen hides her attractive face behind playful glasses and probably her figure too. Shaking off her thoughts, Mina secretly sheds her own fear. She grabs the chance and whispers to herself, the place next to Gerudo is only hers. She speeds up and rushes forward, grabs his hand and shouts his name. At that very moment, the training ground shakes from a mighty blow. Nearby lies a huge striped beast. Exhausted, it was thrown back by an invisible force. Yoi Namba stands over it relaxed and offers simple, unapologetic apologies. Gerudo can only watch, stunned by the sharp, indisputable display of power. He froze, stunned by the power, until Yoi Namba turned around with a self-satisfied smile and declared that his magic had simply slipped away. Next to Haruto Shu, he began muttering a complex sequence of movements, as if analyzing what he had seen, leaving Haruto completely bewildered. His confusion shattered into pieces when a new spell erupted nearby. Fire Arrow. A sisterly barrage of burning projectiles pierced the training ground, causing it to freeze in alarm. A sudden barrage of blows threw everyone off balance. Yoi Namba and the other students flinched in surprise. Their eyes widened and his face froze as soon as he realized this unforeseen threat. Burning shells rained down from above and a worried voice pierced the air. "Isn't anyone hurt?" Quickly in chorus they replied, "Everyone is alive, everything is fine." When the danger finally receded, Mina cast a playful glance at Gerudo, dacing him as if he should intervene and tell the others not to fight over him. Gerudo, already drenched in sweat, could only admit, well, technically it really is his fault. Their conversation broke off mid-word in a smooth, condescending tone that brooked no denial. Prince Rosius appeared beside two female students, a cold smile never leaving his lips for a moment. He said it was bad because heroes should not fight among themselves. Nama stepped forward to confront the prince, whom the other students called Logus, and immediately accused Rosius of wandering around with their girls again. Without flinching, Rosius said he was just greeting the ladies and calmly suggested that if Nama had complaints, he should be his opponent. Quietly explaining to Gerudo that challenging the prince was pointless, and recalling how Rosius instantly crushed other students who dared, he admitted. The vision of the future prince and the use of force were impressive, but his words were immediately swallowed by Rosius's confidence. He knew the guys from the distant field were already watching him. You, like Gerudo and Prince Rosius, observing it becomes clear. Minamachizuki has fully mastered the skill of magical enhancement. The new power grew simply thanks to Gerudo's unique ability to tame. Taming triggers a synergistic cycle. It enhances both the tamer's and the tame's abilities. After Haruto tamed the creature Rigel, both Haruto and the beast became stronger. Now that Mina is also tamed, a force drives the three of them again, a circle of power that each time accelerates their capabilities even more. From this discovery, Karen concludes that the more people Gerudo tames, the stronger he will become. Gerudo hesitates but still agrees. Smiling, Karen suggests that maybe she should be allowed to tame him too, but receives a sharp rebuke from Mina. Their conversation is interrupted by the approach of Prince Rosius. He walks straight up to Mina, says he hasn't properly greeted her yet, and invites her to his home in the evening. At such a frank invitation, Mina shudders and desperately refuses aloud. She shouts that she is absolutely not interested in either him or his room. Such a sharp and uncompromising refusal leaves the prince completely stunned. He froze with a dull stare fixed on one point, composure shattered by the unexpected refusal. Haruto watches the prince's reaction from the side, frowning, not understanding what exactly happened. Rosius quickly regains a semblance of pride and turns away, waving his hand indifferent. He tells Mina that she can come if she changes her mind, but the tone changes when he adds the last, threatening warning, "Let her never come again." After the prince leaves, Mina confronts Gerudo and asks why he rejected Rosius so rudely, and whether he perhaps wanted her to accept the invitation. Gerudo freezes at her words and Karen just sighs, watching this drama unfold before their eyes. Later the students gathered while Princess Philia made an announcement. She informed them that the time for the practical test had come and that they were entering the dungeon. She also explained, her brother advised exactly this move. The dungeon is the best place to test skills, fight monsters, and earn rewards. The news about the dungeon spreads through the class. Rumors create a buzz, and suddenly reality becomes tangible. They are in another world. Amid the conversations, one student without hesitation declares, if Haruto got into something like this, he would handle it without any problems. Namba snorts disdainfully at the very idea what they say is even a dungeon. But Haruto brushes off the compliment and admits, he is not as strong as Mina. Hearing this, Mina gives him a warm smile, pleased that his mood has finally evened out. While the students listened, Princess Philia began her explanation. The dungeon is ancient ruins saturated with magical energy. There you can come across rare magical items, but you will have to pass dangerous traps and encounter monsters. She further explained how the thread works. The deeper you go into the dungeon, the denser the magic becomes, and therefore, the more dangerous the monsters hiding inside. Then the princess described the ranking system in detail. The dungeon danger levels, or clear difficulty, are divided into 10 steps depending on the total magical energy. Any dungeon with difficulty 7 or higher is considered uncharted territory. Its danger is practically beyond human measure. Suddenly changing her tone, she announced that the dungeon they are about to enter has a difficulty of 7. A whisper of anxiety spread among the students. Some were already calculating whether this was too much for their first attempt. Philia smiled and reassured them they are only going into the first 3 floors, those already mapped and cleared, so it is mostly safe there. Namaskar reacted to the news and declared it boring. But Pembli's face sharpened instantly. She warned that even for a hero, if you relax and let your guard down, it will end in death. Her final firmness pierced Gerudo and his classmates with cold. Maintaining a grim instruction, she listed hidden traps from the simplest deceptions to teleportation spells that throw victims into hopeless abysses. She gave one simple rule: do not touch anything suspicious. Then just as quickly her face lit up with joy, and she wished them a pleasant first dive into the dungeon. The fear in the students receded, its place was taken by anticipation. Namba and Gerudo whispered to themselves about magical artifacts and treasures they might find. Philia announced, "The exploration starts the next day, so they will have time to prepare." She promised to distribute maps and finally reveal where they are heading. The next day, the students, now in simple white cloaks, lined up in front of the entrance to the dungeon. In the wall, a gaping maw carved from a gigantic fossilized skull of some enormous creature. The branch announced, "This is the royal tomb." Next to Mina and Karen Gerudo swallowing their anxiety, they processed this eerie name. Before entering, the princess gave the final order. In the dungeon, they would work in threes, so she ordered them to form teams. While Gerudo had not yet digested the team, Mina and Karen approached from the sides. Each grabbed one of his hands and they decisively formed their trio. When their new team was formed, Mina gathered herself with a completely serious face and declared that, after all, she was Gerudo's familiar. Karen, slyly smiling, teased, "If Gerudo leaves her, she will have nothing left but to join the group of students left without a team." Their quarrel whirlpooled the attention of those standing near the dungeon entrance. Perudo, trying to smooth things over, insisted that teamwork was important and urged everyone to understand each other. But Mina turned to him and asked if he was dissatisfied with this very situation. In the silence nearby, Yogai Namba was closely watching him and their conversation. His gaze sharpened. Shadows fell on his face as he carefully examined the newly formed trio with a tense, indescribable expression. Before anyone could react, a terrifying presence overwhelmed them. Gerudo, Mina, and Karen froze as if the sound had torn in the darkness, their faces twisted in shock when a monster with a toothy grin appeared right above their heads. Under the moonlight, Prince Rosius explains his logic to Yogai Namba. He says that Gerudo Tatsui is dangerous, and the appearance of a hero who contains people within him will cause unnecessary political friction if it becomes public knowledge. Namba, irritated, demands to know why he was called. The prince calmly admits he does not like him and asks him not to be so hostile. He continues, revealing the main reason for their meeting: to keep Gerudo Tatsui under control. Namba's eyes sharply widen in shock and incomprehension, and a drop of sweat appears on his temple. Rosius confirms Namba's silent question. The reason he cannot leave the palace is precisely to keep Gerudo's existence a secret. Namba listens, and his face becomes grim. The prince, with a barely noticeable, sinister smile, voices the order. He wants Hiro Yogai to destroy Gerudo. The directive instantly leaves Namba completely speechless, his face frozen in a mask of distrust. Rosius admits that the task is difficult. Besides Gerudo's own powers, Nami will also have a hard time because Maina Mochizuki constantly stays close to him. Then he places a small dark object in Nama's hand and officially assigns him the mission. Nama lowers his gaze to the item, his face still in shock. Returning to gaze at the moon, Rosius displays the timeline. They will strike tomorrow. Coldly adds that no one will blame Namba if a single person disappears during the expedition. His words hang in the air and the scene sharply shifts to a dungeon, dark stone, and endless abyss. A large group of students, including Gerudo, Karen, and Princess Philia, move forward cautiously, their path illuminated by glowing orbs. The prince's echo responds even more sharply. Underground accidents happen at every step. Princess Philia addresses the whole group, reminding them traps and monsters are not illusions but reality. She introduces a protocol. If anyone in the trio is injured or disappears, report immediately. Nearby, Haruto stammers an apology, feeling guilty for making her lead this deadly direction, but she cuts him off. It is not his fault. A flash of memory cuts off the present, showing events 2 hours earlier. Near the dungeon entrance, Sho tells the princess that the leader is the most dangerous place. They will have to be the first to engage enemies and block any retreat. He is convinced the strongest person must be placed at the front line. This conversation, which Namba overheard, turns into an obvious, premeditated manipulation that threw Gerudo into the most hellish role. Princess Philia confronts Yohei Namba and explains, if the elite guard of the kingdom stands at the front, then Gerudo Tsutsui is the logical choice for the vanguard. She looks directly and asks Namba if he feels calm next to the dangerous marvel in which people watch him from behind. Namba's face hardens, shock and instant realization. Meanwhile, Haruto apologizes to Mina and Karen. He feels guilty because of him they got stuck on the dangerous front line and also with his name. Karen waves her hand and brushes off his worries. She does not want to unite with anyone else. And Mina firmly adds, as she already knows, this is exactly where she must be. Calming a friend barely relieves the tension as the whole company freezes before the dark dungeon entrance. Haruto notices Namba's hesitation and asks if everything is okay. Namba looks away, throws the question back to Haruto, and answers that it seems his own knees are starting to tremble. A tense exchange of remarks is interrupted by a terrible swarm of monsters. They burst out from the depths of the cave. A cacophony of whistling screams fills the air. Winged beasts and a large horned creature rush at the students, who respond with cries of alarm. When the horde suddenly surges forward, Mina steps out without hesitation. She sharply throws her hands forward and releases a stream of magic, shouting for everyone to create a firewall and intercept this wave of monsters. Her spell works flawlessly. Other classmates, showing the strength befitting heroes, easily deal with the remaining monsters. The first stage of the dungeon raid passes smoothly because the whole group stands together, victorious over the initial attack. After neutralizing the primary threat, the squad moves deeper into the dungeon. They quickly reach a large, luxurious arch framing a swirling dark portal. The old guide accompanying the students announces, "These are the gates to the lower floors." He orders them to pause and warns that the monsters ahead will be much stronger. While the rest digest what they heard, Princess Philia is fixated on the gloomy portal with a deeply frightened expression on her face. In the depths of the dungeon, the squad takes a pause to recover. Blankets spread on the floor and exhaustion is visible on every face. Haruto Tsutsui gazes at the scene and notes, "Everyone is on the edge." Sentiment Minoru Mochizuki quietly echoes his words. He shifts his attention to his friends and asks Mina if she is okay. His gaze then slides to Karen Hino, who is resting nearby, so he similarly checks how she is feeling. Mina hesitates but uncertainly confirms, it seems she is fine. After this, she admits that she is tired and directly asks to borrow her knees as a pillow. Haruto, surprised by the request, suggests that they and Karen could use their tamed beast Rai instead. In response to his proposal, Karen loudly objects, declaring that Reichen is only for one person and fervently presses the creature to herself. Mina looks on with a tired, unenthusiastic face, while Haruto simply watches. After coming out of retirement, agreeing to Mina's request, he took it as her signal. Then Mina leaned in too close. Her face was only a few inches from his, and a sharp, heart-piercing tension flared between them. Just as quickly she retreats with a sharp movement and says it was only a joke. Closing her eyes, she adds, even if she was tamed, she still has limits, and because of this Haruto remains impressed. Her sudden turn throws her off track, jerks back, stumbles over her words, and mumbles that probably in the end, it's nothing serious if viewed from their vacation spots. Karen aloud wonders if it would be acceptable if they were alone, and Haruto replies that they are in a public place. The reminder drives Mina into a spiral of panic. She scolds herself for missing the moment and regrets not being able to behave naturally. She doesn't understand why it keeps happening again, and again her thoughts race as if trying to keep up with the reproaches piercing her from within. Her visible distress immediately catches his gaze. Haruto leans closer, and true concern sounds in his voice as he asks if she is okay. Frightened Mina assures him she is fine, but he does not back down and only notices, she is pale. His words trigger a warm memory. My reply fades more gently as it voices the memory of an ancient time off, how he cared just the same, and how she feels it with a gentle smile. He remembered. Karen proudly presents the potion she brewed herself, which she created. She explains, it is meant to restore both mind and body while simultaneously reducing physical damage. But Haruto shudders and takes half a step back, pure skepticism. He recalls how many times in the past she had offered him her failed mixtures to try. To calm her own anxieties, Princess Philia steps forward and activates her evaluation skill. She confirms, the potion's effect completely matches how Karen described it. With relief, Karen says that it probably has excellent synergy with compounding. Meanwhile, Haruto watches and acknowledges that the princess's ability is very useful with. When doubts finally retreat, the students drink a restorative elixir. The result is immediate. Namba bursts out screaming with delight, feeling more energetic than ever. When Karen smiles pleased with her success, a hooded figure approaches Namba and asks for the item given to him by His Highness. He obeys and extends a small spherical device. The bearded man takes it and solemnly proclaims, "Now we begin." The sphere in his hand flashes with light a moment, and Namba shudders. What is this? He demands an explanation while the others look on bewildered. As the light grows increasingly bright, Namb is struck by a terrible suspicion. He recognizes the teleportation trap and begins to doubt who really stands before him in the hood. The cloaked man calmly orders him to throw away the device before it activates. In panic, Namba throws the glowing orb away from himself. The man watches this with a barely noticeable self-assured smile. The activated trap flies through the air, precisely tearing straight at Haruto. Involuntarily looks up and freezes in shock. He cuts into the trajectory and catches the sphere. But the next moment his face twists into a wide, sinister smile look completely alien to him. Only his friends can stare dumbfounded at the sudden, eerie transformation. He is tearing his throat from pain. A strange device has fused to his hand. An unbearable heat rises in waves and horror overwhelms him. He cannot let go. Friends panic and call his name. He grits his teeth and roars for both of them to get back. But his warning came too late. Mina and Kieran grab his hands, not letting go. A mighty force pulls them all inside. He hisses spasmodically in despair, his face twisted with hope that is fading. Mina pierces him with her gaze, fiercely devoted. She reminds him she is his familiar and will not let him be alone. Karen, however, voices the harsh truth. It is already too late. None of them can be saved. Her words sound prophetic. The device just reveals a violent whirlpool, a twisted vortex of energy. The male stream literally engulfs Haruto, Mina, and Karen. It pulls so tightly that even the beast clinging to its grip rises and breaks free with a desperate scream. In a moment, the chaotic energy subsides and an overwhelming silence remains. Where the three students stood, now it is empty. The others only freeze and stare fixedly at one point, shocked to the edge, while a small spherical trap lies prostrate on the ground. A sharp crack and a crack appears on the surface of the device. In the remaining silence, RZ's voice breaks into a scream. He calls in distress for Master Haruto, Lady Karen, and Lady Mina, but the words fly into the void unanswered. A memory surfaces, a tense, silent exchange of glances between Haruto and Mina. Their faces are full of unspoken anxiety. The memory fades. Karen's voice cuts through her daze, calling her name twice, while Mina looks from the side grimly and persistently. Her screams finally break his stupor, and he is drawn into this distorted and alien present moment. The cold floor beneath him, on him is some strange cloak. Nearby Mina and Karen, and Rai stands a little aside. He abruptly rises, glides his gaze over the new scenery, a huge sterile chamber assembled from many identical blocks. He asks aloud where they are and finds no exit. He concludes that they have been twisted to an underground level, in the air magic similar to that in royal tombs, and immediately decides this is a trap. When Rai pushes him further, he barely exhales with relief. At least they were not thrown into a completely unknown dimension. While he was piecing together their situation, his gaze stopped on Karen. He noticed she was not wearing glasses. She looked away and embarrassedly admitted that he noticed. When he asked, she confessed, they are just fake glasses, she kind of doesn't need them. He could only exhale in surprise and call her quirky for hiding such a beautiful face. His phrase is interrupted by a sound nearby. Mina begins to move. He calls her name as she slowly opens her eyes, greeting them with a simple, foggy morning. She abruptly sits up, first sighing with relief that everyone is alive, but as soon as she surveys the strange place, fear washes away the relief. She asks where they are and says that rescue might not arrive in time if it is too deep. Haruto confirms, most likely they are in the lower levels of the royal tomb. He explains that almost all are without serious injuries thanks to Karen's medicine. Mina reaches for the truth, and Mina's hesitation pushes until Haruto's face darkens as he utters this grim news. Rescue most likely will not come. At that moment, just as the trap was lowered, a memory of Yoi Nambu laughing next to the man he now recognized as the captain of the guard flashes in his mind. The weight of his words and confirmation of betrayal from their own allies overwhelms Karen and Mina with a wave. Their eyes suddenly open wide, and in a synchronous impulse, pure shock and disbelief. She voiced the question that weighed heavily on everyone: why exactly they had to be made the target. Gerudo lowered his head, thinking, if the royal guard reports directly to Prince Rosius, then the prince is their enemy. And nearby Mina quietly wonders if perhaps it is not her fault. The realization hit her like a blow to the ribsterable and irreversible. Her eyes widened with fear when she understood. Everything happened only because she refused the prince's invitation. He did not allow her to take the blame. He grabbed her by the shoulders and shouted that it was not her fault. He explained that his tamed ability, capable of influencing people, was perceived as a threat. Holding her, he saw, Mina, terrified, broke into a scream and pointed at his hand. From there now blood was flowing due to the strength of her own grish. She immediately set to work on the wound, carefully wrapped a bandage around his bleeding knuckles. When the acute crisis was averted, she quietly asked what their next step would be. He answered her, laying it out clearly. Even if they manage to escape, they will not be able to return to the castle with the Princias with an enemy. Deciding that he was the only target, he forced the two to return and report that he was dead. Both Karen and Mina firmly refused his offer. Without changing his tone, Haruto thought, if they flee to another country, his tamed skill is strong enough that he might possibly establish a zoo. Taking his advice seriously, Karen declared that she was leaving and would even help with the zoo. Mina was even more determined. She reminded everyone that, as is well known, she had every right to follow him. She confessed that she would rather die there with him than return alone and lead a miserable, lonely life, and their Gerudo, embarrassed, begged her not to say such things. Their decision was to act together. They examined the spacious chamber filled with huge columns. Haruto noticed there was enough food for several days, but no exit was visible. His conclusion was cut off when Rei suddenly growled, head jerked toward some presence that was not visible. Haruto turned, alert to his companion's reaction. While Rai had not yet managed to come to his senses, a figure emerged from the shadows. A tall, human-like monster with fierce clawed weapons suddenly slashed at Wraith Blow, pushed the big cat so hard that it crashed to the ground with a thud. The attacker stood as if on display. A huge, bandaged monster loomed over the parched and exhausted one. Gerudo froze in shock, and Karen was already about to cast a spell, but he stopped her instantly. His face became stern, and he firmly declared that he would be the one to fight. He tensed his whole body as the bandaged creature lunged forward. Its huge jaws snapped and clenched just a few centimeters from his face. From behind, Minas screamed his name in fear. Instead of dodging, he stood his ground. A new determination flashed in his eyes. This was the moment. The one thing he had long wanted to try. When he sharply thrust his hand forward, a bright, exquisite magical circle flared between him and the beast. In a strong voice, he gave one command: tame. The light circle shot forward like a projectile and crashed into the creature with a rumble so much so that the chamber echoed with a thunderous blow. When the light went out, the grotesque giant disappeared. In its place now stood a small white creature resembling a dog. Its bandage was removed. It let out a quiet sob and gently nudged Haruto's leg. His aggression was gone. He froze and looked down at the new companion with distrust. The newly tamed creature gently presses its muzzle against Gerudo. He immediately understands. It sensed Mina's immense mana and chose submission over confrontation. Among the companions, he feels a wave of power emanating from all present. He assesses the symbiosis between the trainer and his familiars. The trainer's strength grows along with the familiar's abilities, and the familiar's power is enhanced by the trainer's strength. He calls the new creature almost as powerful as Mina, making it a colossal asset second only to Logos within the kingdom. Once this new power is finally secured, the group's attention shifts to a more practical matter. Karen cannot hide her jealousy and dreams that Gerudo would tame her too. Mina asks how he plans to name their new companion, and Karen replies. Its large, fluffy appearance reminds her of a golden retriever she once had. With her advice, albeit lazily, he still chooses a name: Ridu. The beast growls as if approving. Then Haruto directs Ridu into a dark passage twisting like a whirlpool and asks if he can widen the entrance. When the creature whines unable to do so, Haruto resigns and squeezes through himself. But just as they are about to move, the ground beneath their feet shakes wildly. Mina cries out in fright and the entire squad scatters as if suddenly thrown from their place. The shaking not only does not weaken, it intensifies. Huge sharp pillars of earth suddenly rise from the dungeon floor, and they find themselves trapped in a deadly trap, squeezed between them. When the chaos finally subsides, it becomes clear why the ambush was set. They are surrounded by a large pack of creatures identical to Ridu. Haruto involuntarily senses a pattern. This is Ridu's pack, and he is its leader. Mina asks if he intends to tame them all, and he indeed tries. Resolved with no pause. Stretching out his hands, Haruto releases his power. A huge, finely calibrated magical circle flares on the ground before the entire herd as he utters the taming command. The grandeur of the spell drains his strength. Gerudo staggers, exhausted, and Mina rushes to catch him. He brushes her off, assuring that he just overworked his own mana a bit, and immediately asks if she felt her power grow in response. She confirms his theory, explaining that now Haruto's own mana has become much easier for her to control. While she speaks, a physical manifestation of this new power flashes in her hand. A complex crown-like construct, pure and sparkling energy. She calls him by name Haruto. He turns sharply, stunned. She seems to hint that he might have already gained some new skills in the mass team. He closes his eyes and for a moment gathers his thoughts, digesting what has changed. My sense of smell sharpens. He notices and Mino is looking at him, interested in this turn of events. He understands. Redo's abilities have reflected on him as well. The new power allows him to see through the dungeon walls to make out the shape of a creature in another corridor. From now on, clearing the dungeon seems like a matter of a few minutes. Haruto's comment instantly provokes a fierce reaction in Mina. She turns sharply, covers Karen's eyes, and shouts for him not to look, calling him a pervert. Embarrassed, Haruto insists it's a misunderstanding. His vision is more like a thermograph and he can turn it off. He apologizes and Mina is still blushing but confirms that she is fine. As the group moves on, Karen carefully assesses the situation. She says that in this world there is no concept of experience points or levels, so Gerudo and his familiars will just keep getting stronger endlessly. And she concludes, leveling up on top of raw power is pure cheating for growth. An unexpected jolt pierces Mina as she senses a hint of this continuous growth. Her face flares up, and she exclaims that if these acquaintances start reproducing, their combined power will grow exponentially. Standing among the huge crowd of tamed creatures waiting for his command, Gerudo turns to his companions and asks where they should go next. She checks the map and notes, rank 7 dungeon, a place untouched by humanity. She warns that on the lower floors the most unexpected dangers may await. Mina then asks if by any chance there is a mechanism at the very bottom that leads directly to the exit. Karen thinks and says that since they are not in a hurry, they can just head back to the entrance. Gerudo objects, saying they are already quite deep in the dungeon. And he reasons, if there are even stronger monsters ahead like Ridu, it might be faster to head downward. Determination hardens in his gaze. No, he will not retreat a single step, he will speak with a firm voice. The goal is to conquer this. His friends just watch, impressed by the sudden, crystal-clear ambition. He turned to his gathered companions Mina, Karen, Rai, and to the pack of wolf-like creatures. Emphasizing the colossal danger the path ahead would bring, he asked if they were truly ready to follow him down that deadly risky trail. In the tense silence hanging between them, both Mina's and Karen's expressions hardened. He did not take his eyes off them. A single drop of sweat crawled down his temple as they chose their answer. Karen was the first to break the silence, confirming loyalty without any hesitation. As always, her place was beside him. Mina followed a firm, uncompromising voice. She would not be left behind and she would hold on to him until the very end. Hearing this unwavering support, Haruto's uncertainty vanished. When their resolve was firm, he let out a loud shout and with one command raised everyone. Let's conquer this dungeon. In a moment, the whole team rushed forward. As a single front, they plunged deeper into the labyrinth. Under the light of the full moon, a hand in a glove carefully places a cup on the table in a luxurious room overlooking the city. From somewhere to the side, a voice calls out. He greets Yogai Nambu and insists that everything has been done excellently. In response, Namba slaps his palms on the long table. A sharp bang echoes between them. Posa twists it with irritation. He shouts, demands, let him say whether anyone else even understands what kind of stupid, damn mess he has gotten into now. Namba chews his own trouble and a twisted grimace appears on his face. He files a complaint. At school, everyone looks at him like a murderer, accusing him of making Tooth Sui and others disappear. Turning back across the table, Sho calmly adjusts his Glaseshi's face, reveals no emotion. He states the conclusion evenly, without any pathos. Everything that happened on the day of the expedition was staged. The one he addresses is revealed as Prince Logus. The prince calmly sips tea and smiles. Without moving an inch, he asks so that it is clear, why is he being warned about this? Logus turns his gaze to Namba and calls him a hero who gave his classmates freedom. Namba only smiles crookedly and clings to the word freedom. He will listen silently. Sho stops Prince and asks if Tsui was the reason they were all under house arrest. Logus confirms. They could not release a dangerous hero capable of controlling people, and when he was removed, now everyone is free to go outside. Their gazes clash fiercely. In a tense moment, the hands and marks flash, as he clarifies whether it was part of the plan that he drags Mochizuki and others into this whole conspiracy. The prince's expression barely changes. He responds with a simple no and quickly dismisses the concern as if it doesn't matter. Then he says that his sister kind-hearted Philia was struck by the disappearance. But Sho remains indifferent. In his thoughts, he notes that Mina was too tamed and Karen lacked skills, silently condemning the cold logic of the prince. He watched as Prince Logus raised a piece of food on a fork with a cruel smile. The prince threw out a phrase about how the lives of heroes who are not needed by the kingdom weigh very little, and brushed off everyone, saying, it's just foreigners. At those words, Namba's hand involuntarily clenched into a fist. Namba voiced a chilling hint. Does it mean they need to prove their worth so as not to share Tsui's fate? And also, are Tsui and the others really dead? The prince did not have time to answer when Sho interrupted the conversation. He pointed out that they only saw the group disappear, so he voiced aloud the thought, could they still be alive? Logus calmly took a sip from the cup and dismissed it as impossible. Then he explained the cruel magical instrument they used. It was created to measure the strength of a target, and then distort it down to the floor in the very dungeon, where survival was a priori guaranteed to be impossible. The prince continued the review and noted, the dungeon and the royal tomb have 25 floors. For Gerudo's group, he calculated that they could have been sent to the 15th floor or even deeper below the 20th. He spoke about the bloody, harsh difficulty of the dungeon. From the 7th floor onward, monsters became 30 stronger with each level. Remembering that Haruto's tamed beast he tamed was from the 7th floor, he pondered aloud, on the 20th they will have to fight creatures of incredible power. But the calculation horrified Sho. He immediately realized the monsters would be 30 times stronger. Sho objected, saying that Tsutsui's tamed ability and his familiar might give them a chance. But Logus just laughed and cut him off. Surviving against countless enemies is impossible. The prince added dryly and without pity to the illusions, a tamed skill is powerless when the gap in strength is too great. Nama replied to Sho that there is nothing to worry about. Sho seemed to accept the grim logic, covered his mouth, and admitted the correctness. Somewhere deep in the dungeon, Gerudo, Mina, and Karen stood motionless. Next to their new wolf-like companion, they faced a pack of monsters. They were tightly surrounded, but they did not give up. In the dungeon, sinking in darkness and stretching with stone vaults, Karen Hino gazes into the giant crowd of creatures following Gerudo and shudders with surprise. He now has a whole mass of familiars. Gerudo looks dissatisfied with their pace, silently focuses and notes that they have only overcome about 3 floors. Minus stands nearby, feels his tension, and asks what happened. He again plunges into an internal assessment, staring at the monstrous army he commands. And then he realizes, behind the dry numbers, each of these creatures was stronger than his own team at the moment they first entered the dungeon. He voices observations and is amazed himself. Rai, Ridu, and even Mina became stronger after taming. Karen listens, processes what was said, and concludes, the enhancement from his taming ability is probably not always the same. She puts forward a theory. She says that Gerudo gave the names Rai and Redo, so this difference in connection supposedly is the reason for their rapid growth. While she speaks, she suddenly has a sudden insight. The hypothesis strengthens as soon as Karen begins to wonder how else to explain why Mina got the biggest boost of all. Blinded Mina denies that she became stronger, but Karen calmly insists yes. As for Gerudo, he seems not to worry about mechanics. As long as everyone grows, there is no difference and his own enhancement is as natural as in Tommy. Putting aside disputes, the main group Gerudo, Mina, Karen, Rai, and Ridu presses on without pause. They approach the huge, unyielding gates and feel they have finally reached the dungeon's climax. Enchanted, staring at the luxurious door, Gerudo pulls information from prison records from memory. The realization jolts him. This must be the boss room one before the top floor. Mina feels an incredible force, a wave spreading from beyond the gates. Sensing this threat, Karen suggests leaving the lower-level familiars behind. Gerudo agrees. He does not want unnecessary casualties. But instead of silence, a protest rises in response. Megumi bursts out in disagreement. She is surrounded by other familiars left behind, and she whines that this is a complete collapse, shouting oddly as if she wanted to become crass. Seeing Gerudo's hesitation, Karen Hino steps forward and grabs his cloak, drawing attention. She quickly assures that it was a joke about her previous bravado and insists she will find a way to be useful to the team. To prove her point, she slips him several large flasks, explaining that she brewed these potions herself from rare materials they gathered, and that inside is not just a drink but mixtures for health, protection, mental stability, strength, mana, and many other benefits. With a firm look, she urges him to drink and he agrees. She presses one of the tinctures into his hands. She looks intently and emphasizes, fighting is not the only way to be a valuable member of the party. Gerudo, stunned by her sincerity, can only nod in response. In an instant, Gerudo and Mina burst forward at full speed, both mounted on large feline monsters. Flying through the dungeon corridors, Gerudo uncorks a flask and whispers a word of thanks for the support. He takes a big gulp of the potion and immediately grimaces. With one glance, he notices, the taste is terrible. Nearby, the cinnamon harvester scurries as if sharing the impression too while drinking her portion. Even despite the disgusting aftertaste, a confident smile spreads across his face. He feels the power surging in waves through his body. He knows, this potion will give him strength, exactly what is needed for the battle ahead. Their rapid breakthrough reveals a new milestone on the horizon, a huge conical mountain. Its peak smokes like an active volcano and looms ominously in the distance. In an instant, the landscape twists around them. The stone corridors of the dungeon disappear, replaced by a barren, rocky wasteland at the bottom of the volcano. The sudden, jerky teleportation stuns the entire group. They are shocked and confused. Gerudo and Mindstare open their eyes wide, confused as if they did not believe their own eyes. Their heads tried to comprehend what had just happened. At a sudden change of environment overwhelmed them completely. Before they can even look back, the ground explodes fiercely before them. Soil and stones rise into the air. A huge, invisible threat bursts from beneath the surface and immediately launches an ambush. Gerudo and Mindstare froze in shock, staring upward as the earth split open right before them. From the depths burst a gigantic beast, its head thrown back in a deafening roar that shook the very space. Its mighty, scaly body completely engulfed them. Thigh were smaller than nothing. The realization struck Gerudo like a tangible blow to the chest. It was a dragon. Below the dungeon looms a gigantic, luxurious patterned gate entrance. But the group suddenly realized. Gerudo disappeared from their side. Mina, with a face full of anxiety, calls his name. From behind the gate comes Gerudo's voice that checks if Mina, Rai, and Redo are all right. Then he lunges forward with fierce stubbornness, shouting about his intention to tame the colossal beast right in front of him. The dragon responds with a deafening roar, unleashing a powerful shockwave that throws the other students back into complete chaos. The force of the explosion pounds Mina and her cat Supreme Being, and both of them wildly toss in the air as they roll frantically. Taking cover, Gerudo and Minus Stone freeze in shocked amazement as the creature's power overwhelms them completely. Gerudo suddenly realizes Sand is striking. Before them is a dragon. He turned to the others and announced his plan to try once more to tame. Despite the previous failure, he asked for a little time. Mina began to object, but he fixed her with a look desperate and pleading. Nearby, the dragon recoiled from the attack. In response to his plea, Mina and her rider dashed forward, shouting to distract the dragon from Gerudo. The beast took the bait, it grabbed them with its huge jaws, and they barely dodged, just managing to avoid the strike. While she maneuvered, Mina recalled the past. She used to always rely on Gerudo and it annoyed her. But now, for the first time, he relies on her. This thought sparked determination within her. She must be useful. She called upon a new power fire scale. Her throat was instantly covered with fiery hot scales. The dragon was heating up. Mina whimpered, feeling incredible power flowing into her. At the same moment, Gerudo's hand began to glow. He felt the same surge of energy. "Well done, Mina," he exclaimed, recognizing her decisive support. He stood before the giant, radiant magic circle, spreading his arms, trying to tame the great beast. In the dragon's single eye reflected his determined face, a point of will amid the undivided power, while a mighty roar thundered around. His consciousness was suddenly pulled into a dark, empty abyss. Disoriented, he did not understand where he was. From the darkness came a powerful voice. It called the attempt to tame a contract. The voice explained that it was not trying to force servitude, instead, it was negotiating. In response, Gerudo's face froze, full of determination. He declared that he had a powerful desire. The immeasurable presence in the void swirled with a thought, like fate, a strange thing. Then it challenged. If Gerudo can fulfill his desire, he must prove it. A drop of sweat rolled down his cheek as soon as he realized. The dragon has a deep mind. As this realization twisted his head, Mina in the real world saw the giant dragon suddenly disappear completely, without a trace. Impressed by the disappearance, Gerudo called her name. When the danger finally receded, the group stood again at the entrance to the dungeon. Mina exhaled with relief and thanked Gerudo, assuring that the fight was over. And he, turning to her with confusion, asked what she meant. His uncertainty broke with a firm decision. Gerudo stood beside Mina before the newly opened passage, flooded with bright light. He gave the order, "Let's go," together with their companions. They prepared to step into the unknown, where it was unclear what awaited. Gerudo, Mina, and Megumi found themselves in a vast, luxurious hall and immediately realized this was the lower floor of the dungeon. Gerudo and Mina surveyed the scale of the architecture, and joy flashed in Megumi's eyes. She loudly asked if there were any treasures here. But her delight instantly melted into terror. With a sharp scream, Megumi grabbed Gerudo by the cloak and he immediately turned around, demanding that she explain what had happened. Her panic threw him off balance. On a huge throne before them sits a colossal dragon creature, majestic and at the same time deadly threatening. Nearby lies a large horned skull. Her voice, deep, resonant, fills the hall, acknowledging their presence. "So you have come, heroes." Gerudo instantly recognizes in her the true likeness of the dragon they had just fought. And Megumi, immersed in her research, names the creature Prosperous, the holy dragon famous for stopping an ancient catastrophe. She wonders how such a revered being appeared here, but Prosperous scorches her with a look and cuts off. It is the fault of heroes like them. The accusation of the dragoness hangs in the air as she says, she was sealed precisely in this land by a hero from the past. The revelation strikes the three students so much that they fall silent, their faces freeze in shock. Megumi voices their shared confusion. Why did the hero imprison a creature meant to fight the catastrophe? Prosperous explains. After many years in prison, her power faded, so she could only manifest a weaker, illusory form, the one they had already encountered. And she adds, despite this, many heroes have been summoned more than once for this very purpose. She unfolds the terrible story further. In the last millennium, disaster struck only 3 times, but heroes are called endlessly. And while there is no way to face a true calamity, some of those summoned, unaware of the true intentions of the one who calls, began to persecute innocent creatures, calling them the very threat. Megumi listens, horrified to realize the virus is just another of their victims. The truth settles heavily on Gerudo. He clenches his fist as the pieces fall into place. If they were deceived by lies about the calamity, then the prince and the entire kingdom are their enemies. He needs power to stand against them. His friends agree. They accept, as it has always been vague, the promise of returning home. Gerudo's resolve strengthens. He turns back to the sealed dragon and declares that he will act. Megumi objects, reminding him how difficult it was even against a mere illusion. Without hesitation, Gerudo replies, he can because he made a promise. He steps forward and places his palm on the crystal in the prison. At the touch, cracks instantly spread like a web. Prosperous watches, eyes wide with disbelief, and asks if he really intends to break her seal. She watched as the students conferred among themselves. The buff she gave was truly strong, yet still insufficient. Megumi anxiously turned to Haruto. Does he know how to break the seal? But he honestly admitted he did not. Noticing his hesitation, Mina cut in. The situation is bad. His admission elicits a low, guttural sound from the mighty beast, just as Mina lifts her head. The sound, terrifying to the bone, rolled like a wave through Mina, her eyes sharply widened in horror. She screamed his name in panic, her voice trembled as her gaze was mesmerized, drowning in the huge dragon. The immense power flowing into him proved too heavy and Haruto suddenly fell. Mayfire solemnly and calmly explained, her power is colossal, so it knocked him unconscious. Mina and Megumi rushed to him, asking if he was okay while he groaned. Megumi quickly handed him restorative potion. When he recovered, Mino did not leave his side and watched him anxiously. Mayfire said that probably he got such great power thanks to her. Haruto looked at his own hand. An incredible flash of energy still pulsed in it, flowing through his veins, but doubt still lingered. He turned to the sealed dragon and apologized, honestly admitting he still does not have the power to free her. Mayfire's reassured him there is still a chance and explained that her power will grow along with his own. She encouraged him to become stronger, and when he asked how, she revealed she knows the perfect place he needs to go. She led him to a place called Paradise. It was a dungeon. Mayfair said that powerful monsters gather there, so it was the ideal location for him to train and become stronger. The dragon did not stop and revealed the true weight of the dungeon. Paradise was a rank 9 dungeon, and in its deepest depths lay the sealed archfiend, the same disaster that happened 200 years ago. The students froze, stunned by this revelation. Still not recovered, they began asking about the conditions, rank 9 and calamity. From the position of her seal, Mafir clarified she said she believes people rank dungeons on a scale from 1 to 10. The words Holy Dragon threw Haruto into panic. He screamed, demanding to know how the seal could be broken. One thought looped in his head: terrible consequences. If the archfiend is released, the continent will again be covered by total destruction. She explained, the magical tool that attracts monsters is hidden under the archfiend's seal. Normally, gathered creatures would drain its mana and weaken it, but now the archfiend began taking mana from monsters to accumulate its own power. She warned, if this continues, the seal will soon be broken. Based on this, he concluded he must go and demand the magical tool. The dragon stubbornly refused this idea. No chance, she said, he is too weak. Then she proposed another option and sharply noted that their current meager equipment is unreliable. With a nod, she ordered, take everything I offer. The offer of new equipment stunned Haruto, Mina, and Megumi. They froze, silently digesting what they heard, and distrust and admiration flashed in their eyes. While the trio puts on powerful new adventure gear, they build up full combat spirit. Haruto takes the lead. On the sides are his determined friends, and the voice of the sacred dragon resounds loudly, announcing the start of the journey and blessing them as heroes. In the dungeon, Yohei Namba stands over the remains of defeated monsters, a sword plunged into a creature's skull. He snorts. The opponents are too weak. From the end of the chamber, Shu calls to him and suggests taking a break because the others are already exhausted. Yohei brushes off the concerns and intends to clear the dungeon without delay. Next, they show his team in another cave before a colossal creature resembling a turtle. They explain, as elite heroes, they were assigned the highest difficulty known rank 5 dungeon. He raises his hand to his mouth, freezes with anxiety, and sharply asks why everything is so sudden. Are they really sure about the dungeon's rank? He immediately hits Yoi, calling him a chicken, and rides confidently, everything will be fine, the kingdom will give maximum support. Yoi insists that clearing this dungeon is their chance to show the world the power of heroes, so their names will spread across the continent. At these words, the mouth of the giant creature begins to open, and Shu finally sees the real danger that awaits them. The creature's jaw opens wide, and row after row of terrifying teeth appear. Under such a threat, Sho clenches his will together and admits without any embellishment, there is no other way out only to fight. Their female companion silently observes, mentally noting, Yoide's strength grows daily, while the future vision of someone named Kakara lasts longer. She is sure he predicted this. Yoi, smiling confidently, orders them to go and see everything with their own eyes. After all, they and he are masters of the extra class, so they will do everything their own way. The shot switches to a view of a bustling port, and in the distance on the mountainside, a colossal structure looms as a dark mass. Yoi's face is hidden behind a visor, and he declares, if disaster happens anywhere inside, he will crush it. Below, Haruto, Mina, and Megumi gaze intently at the scene, and Megumi bursts out with an excited why. They walk through the bustling streets of the town. Haruto recognizes it as Casca settlement at the foot of the dungeon known as Paradise. Megumi nods. It's noisy here from adventurers hoping to hit the jackpot inside. Her imagination runs wild. She sees piles of treasures guarded by a dragon. She says she understands why people risk their lives for such incredible rewards. Haruto explains their mission, pointing to the map of the dungeon. He says, It is a single-level dungeon, and monsters get stronger the closer they are to the demon at the end, so it is the perfect place to test their skills. But he immediately clarifies the real goal. They will only go to the deepest level to weaken the demon and take the artifacts that will strengthen him again. Filled with determination, Megumi agrees enthusiastically. Perudo and Mina confidently chime in, noting that their new equipment has made them much stronger. As they prepare to move on, an unknown voice calls out, "So you are adventurers then?" The one who stopped Haruto and his companions is a cheerful young girl in a maid's uniform. She asks if they need a place to stay overnight, and Mina suggests talking to her. The girl introduces herself as Lisa and enthusiastically advises the courtier. Supposedly, a discount and an extra dish for dinner to lure them in. Her sales work and Lisa joyfully declares that everything is settled for 3 guests, which confuses Gerudo. Mina notices that Karen looks worried, and even before she can ask, Mina herself gasps loudly, her face flushing bright red. Completely bewildered, Gerudo directly asks if she is a secret pervert and Karen sharply denies it, flustered. After Lisa, the company goes to Kudai, a decent 2-story building. While they head to the entrance, Mina has not yet recovered from Gerudo's words. The accusation that she is a secret pervert stubbornly echoes in her thoughts. Inside, their guide leads them to a room. With great showiness, she announces, there is only one free room left in the entire inn, and at the same time the room has only 2 beds. The announcement stuns the girl. Gerudo, still not understanding, turns to Mina again and starts teasing her as if she were a pervert. Lisa apologizes and explains that they are fully booked. As if he doesn't care, Gerudo just nods. Since they are in the same company, he doesn't see what the problem is. The incomprehensible question hangs in the air. Later, the 4 sit at a table in the common area of the hotel with the accommodation situation still unresolved. Gerudo breathes out sharply, irritated to the extreme, because the awkward complication drags on endlessly. Gathered around a round table in a warm, well-lit room, Gerudo and his companions Mina, Karen, and a new young woman watch as a luxurious banquet dish is brought to them. Next to Gerudo, behind him, stands the maid Lisa with a friendly smile, inviting them all to start eating. Seeing so much food, it hits them like a shock. They stand for a moment with wide-open eyes, then all start eating eagerly, thanking for the serving. They are flooded with a wave of simple, normal joy, and Gerudo finally breaks down in tears. Nearby, Mina and Karen look at him with expressions of gentle understanding. He comes to his senses and thanks Lisa, saying that now he understands why her schedule is so packed. She clarifies, the current crowd in town is due to recent unrest. While they talk, Karen quietly chews and reflects on how hard it is for adventurers. They themselves recently ate only dry bread. Gerudo's words suddenly clarify the picture for his companions. The hero is heading to the city. The news hits Mina and Karen right in the heart. Lisa confirms, even representatives of the royal family will arrive. The team realizes with horror rumors about how they are clearing an unknown dungeon have spread, so now they will have to meet expectations and conquer the dungeon known as Paradise. Minus hints that it's time for them to leave the city, but Karen does not give up. She insists there is still enough time, so every moment must be used. Her goal, she says, is to get an artifact from the depths of Paradise that weakens the seal. To do this, they first need to become stronger, tame even more monsters. The conversation continues. Gerudo asks if the kingdom even knows about the artifact, and Karen just waves it off. The locals definitely have no idea, because an archdemon is sealed in the Paradise place. A frightened miner then blurts out a question: why keep this to themselves if they can just give the matter to the hero? Karen does not hide her doubts. Will their heroine team make it all the way to the very bottom of the dungeon? Her main fear is that they will provoke the archdemon in vain. Miner immediately catches the meaning. It's about Yogi, the 9th rank adventurer, the one who can bring the most trouble. Later, already in their room, the strategic conversation suddenly becomes more awkward. The question of who will sleep where. Standing in front of 2 large beds, Mina directly asks Karen, how should they decide this? By dividing the places. Returning to the table, Mina voices her concern both for Rai and for the others. Haruto calms her down by showing a vision. Rai and Ridu are sleeping peacefully nearby in the forest. He keeps them on alert. He explains that he feels their safety thanks to the timer, but cannot know the exact actions. Karen only dryly notes how incredibly desirable such a power would be for any father. Haruto looked around the room and immediately counted 2 beds for 3 people. Mina sighed anxiously again, and he quickly offered a solution. He would sleep on the floor and give the beds to her and Karen. His comrades immediately rejected this idea. Karen was unyielding. As the heart of the party, Haruto needed proper rest. Mina decisively agreed and stated that this could not be an option at all. With their united front, he felt defeated. Arguing with the 2 of them without a chance of winning was a futile matter. The discussion immediately shifted. Karen took the floor herself and announced that she was physically more enduring. Mina instantly interrupted in response. She would sleep on the floor because during battle she could rest anyway. He seized the moment and tried to intervene by their own logic. He should be the one lying on the floor. But both women synchronously, as if conspired, drowned him out with a shout and demanded that he listen. The quarrel did not subside. Mina insisted that Karen's bed was needed for her precise alchemy, and Karen countered that Mina, as an acquaintance, should have it. He was already thinking that they would drag this out until dawn when suddenly an idea flashed in his head. He voiced his decision. To push the beds closer, there would be enough space for all three. And to complete shock, when night fell outside, Mina and Karen willingly agreed. The plan worked. Now he lay motionless in the very center of the joined beds, Mina on one side, Karen on the other, and all three silently stared at the ceiling. It broke and silence came. He aloud wondered in surprise whether it was even possible to sleep like this. Embarrassed, Karen asked him to speak more quietly and assured that they could, and Mina confessed. She felt uneasy and asked if her heart was beating too loudly. He thought to himself, really loud. Thundered in the air, heavy, springy knocking, and he could not figure out whether it was the mad pulse of himself or the heart of one of the girls nearby. He freezes motionless in the darkness, eyes wide open from shock, and the hand next to him clenches the sheet into a tight, angry fist. Now it becomes clear where so much attention comes from. The girls are arguing. With a sly smile, Mina asks Karen to come a little closer and assures, it's all right, she is smaller, so she will find a place for Gerudo. But Karen frowns in response, saying that Mina is crowding her and has moved too far to the right. Caught between their crossfire, Gerudo freezes ahead and silently panics. Karen pulls him with words he knows better, and Mina remains calm, just nudges, use the space efficiently. In the darkness, his name is whispered from both sides and faces are too close, awkwardly so. The closeness presses relentlessly. His face flushes with a blush while inside he silently screams. What a cruel twist of fate dragged him exactly into the middle position. He hisses a curse at his own terrible misfortune. The simple game rock, paper, scissors cut off his fate. Whoever loses sleeps in the middle. And in the silence of this building, the long, tense night stretched on. Inside and around, Haruto Tsutsui sits on the bed. On the sides, Megumi and another young woman. Morning light cuts the room where they sleep together. He lets out a tired sigh, irritation on his face, and his two companions on both sides look a bit embarrassed. Later, already dressed in travel gear, the trio makes their way along a path through a dense forest past huge trees with pale white bark. While they walk, Megumi aloud wonders where Rai and the others are. Haruto explains, he just called them and clarified that it is enough to call in thoughts and the familiars will respond. The connection does not hold if they are too far. The other girl looks with surprise at how he can hear the thoughts of his familiars, and as soon as Haruto assures that they are not far, he immediately feels their approach. At this ringing in response, not only Rai. A whole horde of monsters rushes noisily through the trees straight at them, and the two girls scream in panic at the terrifying sight. Megumi shouts, asking if this is not too much. Gerudo watches the creatures and understands. They want to become stronger so that they are tamed by him. His other companion anxiously says that such a large pack will attract a squad of conquerors from the city, but Gerudo only nods, a firm determination on his face, and he raises his hand. He spins his power and again commands the horde to tame itself. His will spreads outward like a wave and strikes all the monsters gathered together. The order covers the entire clearing. Every creature is lifted by the glow of its taming skills. When the task is completed, Haruto calmly says, "Well done," and releases the creatures just tamed. They disappear in a flash of light and his companions are left speechless. But one creature does not disappear, a formidable white-winged lizard. Gerudo shifts his gaze to it and says grimly, "Only one remains." He gently puts a collar for taming on the tiny creature's head. His companions are amazed by the sight, a white dragon, and such a miniature one. One of them exclaims that he is so cute. Seeing this, they froze in surprise and he explained, despite its size, this creature held the greatest hidden power of all he had encountered today. Realizing it was still a dragon, he decided to give it a name and suggested Lulu. As soon as the name was spoken, a dazzling light burst from Lulu. The little wyvern began to grow at a frantic pace. Its body spread out, increasing right before their eyes in a flash. He had not yet recovered when the huge Lulu playfully grabbed him in her jaws. He screamed in protest and demanded to be released while his friends watched him panic. But instead of releasing him, Wyvern sharply soared into the sky and carried him on his back. When his friends called him from below, he looked down from the clouds, stunned by the incredible view of the city spread out beneath them. Their sudden flight into the sky did not go unnoticed. From the ground, a vigilant, heavy gaze watched the flight. Gerudo's gaze broke away and scattered in a sudden, incredibly fierce wave of bloodthirstiness. When he looked to where it came from, a monster rose above the city, a horned giant ascending into the sky. Lulu responded to that threat with a mighty roar. Haruto, Mina, and Megumi arrive earlier than Grandon. Before them stands a stern building. Beside the entrance stand two huge armored statues. The bustling square confirms they are in the right place. Megumi looks up with excitement and exclaims that this is the Travelers Guild. When they come closer, they switch to conversation. To enter the dungeon, you need to register as adventurers. Mina says they might be blocked and the kingdom will find them, but Gerudo calmly replies the guild is an independent organization, so they are safe. And Megumi adds, no specific information about the heroes has leaked. His face hardens with determination. Gerudo is glad they managed to take lectures in the castle without proper registration. The guild would hunt them for trespassing. Everything in this story presses with urgency. The seal on Great Demon could break at any moment. He orders the others to hurry. Inside, a stern-looking woman standing behind the counter finishes their papers. She announces that registration for all three is complete and hands over the newly issued guild cards across the table. While they recover, Mina cannot come to terms. Could it really have been simpler than simple? She was expecting some kind of test. But Gerudo, it seems, knew in advance, calmly says that no test will be needed. The registrar calls them and extends advice. She warns, if they head to a place called Paradise, they must act with utmost caution. High-level monsters have recently started appearing even on shallow floors. After this, she suggests contacting the information intermediary for more detailed information about Paradise. As soon as this is said, Mina moves closer and whispers to hurry Gerudo. Hurry, she says, we need to manage to pick up the magical tools. Gerudo quietly agrees. After consulting the registrar, they find the man and he immediately raises 3 fingers, demanding 3 copper coins. Gerudo freezes. The fee is requested up front. The man snorts and clarifies whether this resembles alms, then explains that this is his informational contribution. Once the fee was set, the broker asked what exactly they needed to know. He gave a choice: a map of Paradise, information about the monsters hiding inside, or even information about deep zones. He freezes in place and closely examines Haruto and Mina as if reading them by their gaze, saying they do not at all resemble the kind of people ordinary adventurers could even dare to mess with. He leaned forward and with cold finality admitted he had no information about the deep zones. No one, as he explained, had reached there and returned. Casting a sharp glance at them, he proposed a deal. If they succeed, he would pay generously for the information they bring. Having left the brokerage office, the company moved through the noisy city streets. Mina noticed that they had not found any solid leads and asked if they were going to Paradise right now. Gerudo paused for a moment and replied that at least they managed to get a map of the cleansed territories. Then he admitted, honestly, that huge catching session since early morning completely drained his mana. He said he wanted to be at full strength before they moved on. And he also suggested taking a walk around the city by the end of the day. Megumi's face lit up at the very idea. She spread her arms wide and full of excitement exclaimed that since they found themselves in another world, they needed to gather some happy memories. Gerudo smiled in response, supporting her. After all, it really was a good idea. With new plans in their pocket, the company set off to wander the city. The blonde warrior girl pointed her finger at a quirky shop filled to the brim with strange artifacts and skulls, its sign cleverly featuring a stylized cat's head. Inside, Megumi happily slipped Mina a small object almost like a tiny skull. In an instant, Mina's face twisted with anxiety. Gerudo in the background watched intently, and a drop of sweat appeared on his temple. Their walk through the city dragged on. Companions bustled among the shop windows with armor and travelers' clothing, greedily examining everything new, reveling in the sights of the new place. They turned onto another street. Megumi pondered thoughtfully. Probably successful abilities grant access to the best materials. She declared that as soon as they returned to their inn, she would brew a few truly wonderful potions, and the blonde companion aloud wondered whether those potions would be tastier and whether that would add to the flavor. And then a thought struck. The warrior seemed to be pierced by a sudden insight. She laughed nervously and immediately realized, if Haruto applied the taming skill to the ingredients making them tastier, then perhaps it was truly achievable. Haruto and the others listened, intrigued by the new idea. Their conversation was interrupted exactly when their eyes fell on the poster stuck to the brick wall. It advertised the local hot springs, one picturesque shot, and the attention of the whole group was drawn to it like a magnet. Together with their companions, they reached a hot springa, luxurious open-air bath under the sky, surrounded on all sides by ancient trees. On the women's side, Megumi was glowing. This was her first time in such a place. Nearby, an armored girl eagerly picked up her words, and Mina just watched it and rejoiced with them. But on the men's side, everything went differently. Gerudo, already sitting in the water, suddenly found himself surrounded by other visitors, among whom were Namba and Sho. The men bombarded him with questions where he lived, whether he was here alone, and grumbled that they did not recognize him. The pressure was becoming increasingly intense. Mina, not lagging a step behind the boiling water of the natural hot spring, moves forward and cannot believe it. She is happy and even smiling. She says this is the best, and wonders how many days have passed since she last warmed herself in a normal bath. As soon as she settles into the warm water she sees, Megumi is already submerged up to her shoulders. Her face is a mask of pure bliss as she savors the soft, soothing warmth. But the blessed face of Megumi suddenly fades, changing to shock with wide-open eyes. She stammers and praises, saying that in real life it looks incredible. Nearby, Mina calmly asks if she means Karen and suggests that in her world Karen probably used a chest binder to avoid standing out. Karen confirms the words and adds that in her old world she did cosplay and was even somewhat known in that scene. She admits that she wore a binder and glasses specifically to hide her face. Now she feels uncomfortable talking about Ida's if it happened in the past, one of those cringy stories. Mina immediately dismisses her own discomfort, insisting that it is not like that at all. No, it's simply incredible. Being known for something is honorable. Megumi thinks and admits, if it were about surprises, she would never have guessed that Karen is a cosplayer. But the most unexpected thing, according to her, is how open Mina is about it. Then her thoughts shift to Haruto. She notes that he is actually quite reliable. At these words, I get flushed, I blush and twitch quickly, mumbling that she didn't mean anything strange. Throughout the entire spring, Haruto relaxes with Namba and the show. Gathering her thoughts, Mina agrees. She explains. Although he is rude, his quick decisions made their path reliable and says that he has always been like that. She continues to praise, recalling how Haruto was always attentive and how the children from the neighborhood loved him. He even spent whole days searching for owners for stray cats. She says that over time, even Lisa began to warm up to him. At these words, Megumi shudders and bursts out, and it's not far from him getting himself some little girl. Her shocked outburst was met with Mina's calm clarification. She explained that Haruto was interested not only in little girls. Mina noted that during their walk, even saleswomen were attracted to him, and Karen added that it seems lately he has gained confidence and appears more often. However, Karen added that Haruto is so thick-skinned that he never noticed any attention. Minor agreed with a sigh, complaining, even if he were popular, his complete inattentiveness would mean that he wouldn't be dating anyone. Then her gaze slid again to Karen with a teasing joke. Mina hugged her from behind, assuring, everything is fine and she doesn't need to hide anything. Feelings can't be hidden anyway, they are simply impossible not to notice. Embarrassed, Karen immediately denied it, exclaiming that she doesn't care at all. Despite her fierce denial, Mina's face showed a deep blush. Noticing this, she insisted, look your friend straight in the eyes and ask without any hints what she thinks about Haruto. The direct question made Karen freeze. Her face changed from confused to serious, and she quietly clarified whether Mina was really speaking with full seriousness. At the answer, Mina's gaze softened. On her face was gentle sincerity as she confirmed that it was true. The serious mood was broken by a new wave of Karen's irritation. She insisted that she liked Haruto only as a friend, then poured out a complaint about his indifference. She told how after she had put on full heavy makeup, his only reaction when she took off her glasses was dry and colorless. Oh, you took off your glasses. She was horrified that he didn't notice it at all. His complaint accurately captured the very essence of Gerudo and even highlighted something else. The same blindness was fully manifesting. One man loudly declared that a guy like him could never become popular, while another sneaked closer and asked, let Gerudo call him if he wants to meet. Caught between a fence and a hint, Gerudo froze in shocked, silent confusion. In the hall of the great throne of the kingdom of Elmen, King Hills praises his son, Prince Logus, for the successful capture of Shadow Dungeon. Kneeling before the throne, Logus humbly credits the victory to the heroes. The king recalls the three heroes of the conquest squad Yohei, Kakeru, and Megumi, acknowledging their power as among the strongest on the entire continent, and proclaims that they must be duly rewarded while the current calamity continues to unfold. Princess Philia expresses concern. If heroes are kept without an obvious threat, other states will accuse of expanding military boundaries. Logus reassures Herthy have already checked this option. Then he strictly announces to the court, the seal on Archdemon, which has been held for 200 years, is about to crack. The king even freezes at this news. Is it really the same Archdemon? He recalls the catastrophic damage it once caused. Logus replies, the seal inevitably erodes over time and it has already happened at exactly after 2 centuries. Moreover, the place where it stood disappeared from the chronicles, but now it has been found. The king orders caution and warns Logus. He usually rushes forward without thinking. And the prince inside just brushed off his father's words as if it were his usual cowardly caution. His determination grows stronger. He announces that he will immediately prepare forces to kill Archdemon. But just as he turns around, the voice of Princess Philia cuts through the hall and orders him to wait. He stops, glances over his shoulder with a question on his face. She challenges his plan and asks if he intends to break the seal with his own hands. The king intervenes and orders Logus to limit his actions to strengthening the seal only. Logus objects. They must strike right now while their forces are in formation. Heroes are often impossible to summon at the right moment. Then he cuts off the response. Reinstalling the seal on the creation is impossible. He explains, one of the heroes is currently in a state where he is unable to use his powers. Philia immediately demands explanations and, emphasizing the reminder, adds, Shadow Squad consisted of 80 elite soldiers excluding the heroes. The unspeakable reason hangs in the air like a heavy burden. It is impossible to separate it from the memory of the price of the prison. Of those 80, only 55 returned. The king dismissively rejects. Heroes are too fragilely a logical consequence of their coming from a peaceful world. Both Logus and Philia respond to their father with sharp, dissatisfied facial expressions. Suddenly, a new voice cuts through the room. A figure named Victor enters. He confirms that he already feels better and has been listening to the meeting all this time. Victor says his appearance is just in time and shares his opinion about Archdemon, agreeing with King. They need to focus on resealing it. Logus is clearly confused. Victor immediately intercepts him, demands to state the reason for these actions. King Hai's father freezes in shock, asks to confirm that Archdemon is truly sealed in a place called Paradise. Logus nods with a cold, brief word, yes. This confrontation became the climax of a conversation that had erupted just a moment ago. Victor explained to the king that he had received a Mesageth monsters had come to life near the capital, so he gathered information to not compromise their security. He added that the trading city of Kask stands at the foot of Paradise, and the damage would be incalculable if the seal cracks. Turning to the present, Victor fixes his gaze on the prince himself. He admits that the prince admires the legendary hero Russell, whose portrait hangs on the wall, but firmly insists, today's heroes are not the same. The king pours out words with a voice trembling with reverence for the past hero. He recalls the legendary deeds of Russell, the extermination of Oni, relatives of the Archdemon, and the seal on the evil dragon, as if repeating a commandment. Then Victor shifts his gaze to the king and Princess Philia and proposes a way forward. He asks them to believe in the cause of the hapless hero Megumi himself. He claims to spend more time in the disabled state than anyone else, so he sincerely believes he can help her recover. The guards standing aside exhale with relief. While the offer is announced, Logus is boiling. Inside, he snorts disdainfully at this rag who gave up his inheritance rights due to illness and now meddles in state affairs. The king does not ease the pressure and asks if the current heroes can manage at all, especially when Megumi is bedridden with a collar. But Logus has already decided. He must show his own strength and power. Far from the royal court, Gerudo Tsutsui looks out the window at night. He understands everything. There is no other way. He must set out for Paradise. Mina sleeps nearby. Megumi is in a deep unconscious state. He decides, the journey will begin tomorrow, and under the moonlight above the dark landscape looms a gigantic, horned figure of the destination. Haruto, Philia, and Megumi head to the entrance of the dungeon known as Paradise. Ahead, near the gates, a huge crowd is bustling. Stalls and banners stretch along the road. Megumi immediately notices it is more of a festival here than a dangerous labyrinth. As soon as they absorbed this, a familiar voice joyfully called out to them Lisa. She is actively working at the souvenir shop. Haruto asks what she is doing here, and she simply replies, earning a living. Lisa shows that Paradise attracts not only adventurers but also a bunch of tourists, a real goldmine. Her words instantly drew their gazes to the large monument nearby. There were 3 heroes depicted there. Haruto froze when he recognized them, Nanba and Akamoto, and next to them stood a warrior who looked just like Megumi, only in impressive new armor. Lisa decided they were fans and hurriedly asked to buy something before leaving, promising, see you later. Their company moves toward the main gates, but the burly gatekeeper stops them half a step away. Haruto demands an explanation for why they are not allowed to enter Paradise. The guard waves him off. They lack the necessary strength, so first they must raise the guild's rank and only then will they be let in. He clenches his jaw. He understands. This is a serious blow. Their rank is still low. They have just joined the guild. Philia quietly whispers that Rai and the others are coming by different routes and adds, if it gets tough, they will have other options to deploy. At that moment, another guard approaches them in full plate armor. He asks if they are travelers and requests to see guild cards. Haruto hesitates but still hands them over. After a brief inspection, the armed guard gestures to proceed. When the heavy iron gates begin to screech and open, he wishes them a safe journey. Then he gives the last piece of advice, just be careful. He explains that he sees no reason to refuse entry to those who clearly have strength, his gaze fixed on Haruto and Philia. Deafening, ringing metallic clatter and heavy gates rumble, closing behind the troika, locking them in the passage to the dungeon. A grim truth hangs in the air. No traveler has ever returned from the deepest depths of Paradise. In the meat area, it's a completely different level. The branch urges time to rush. Haruto nods, confirming the mission. Their task is to tame the monsters in paradise and at the same time obtain the magical instrument that weakens the seal of evil. When the goal is clear, they decide to press on. At Elsewhere, Prince Logus leads Namba and shows the way along a path through a gnarled, overgrown forest. As they make their way through the thickets, Namba turns to him and asks why they set out so suddenly. Logus responds with a contemptuous smile and bluntly says, "Those who have already died were just dead weight." This time he explains from now on they will go only with an elite handful. His words shock both Nambu and Sho. Was the loss not too great and was the previous amount enough? At that moment everything falls into place. Their target is the entrance to the dungeon, marked by a giant horned skull. Shu recognizes it as Paradise's highest difficulty dungeon. Logus confirms there is no better way for their names to be known across the land than to conquer it. He adds that it has only one floor, so it won't take long, but Namba asks him to wait. He loudly protests, questioning, why even clear such a high difficulty level if their fame is already enough after clearing the Shadow Dungeon? Logus coldly cuts him off. A true hero should not be satisfied with so little. Then the prince reveals the real stakes. The catastrophe was sealed in paradise. After this shocking revelation, Namba and the rest of the scene hang in silence. Showing that he is regaining control, he proclaims, if they are destined to face this beast, first they must prepare and strengthen the other heroes. Logus replies evenly and smoothly, defeating this evil is exactly what will give them a chance to return to their world. His reasoning is impeccable, but the prince rolls closer with a sly smile and places his hands on her shoulders. Namb. He confesses that his true desire is to make legends out of them. This passionate confession shocks both companions. He lays out his philosophy clearly. When there are 27 heroes gathered here, a joint victory would only mean that the group's name is remembered, and he will not allow that to happen. Only true heroes, he insists, should carve their names into history. He tells Namb and shows that they have earned this right. The show seems to take this with respect but still hesitates. But suddenly Logus's face changes. He receives new information. He states that Haruto Tsutsui and his group are already in paradise. Namba and Shore freeze in shock. The prince chimes in. His scouts and casks saw them. It turns out they cleared the royal tomb. Namba can't believe his ears. They managed to conquer a dungeon with a difficulty higher than even his own. Panicking, they understand one thing. As soon as the Tutsui group finds out they were set up, everything will be revealed and they will lose everything. Logus, with a grim face, concludes that the Haruto squad came to the dungeon not just like that, but for that very reason. They probably already suspect something. He silently stared at the entrance to the dungeon, his face hardening with every word had just voiced his grim conclusion. The Gerudo faction, he said, had gathered to seize the power of the catastrophe. Nimba, standing nearby, trembled with disbelief and faltered. Could they really go that far? But Logus was unyielding, insisted that then they would use this power to exact revenge on the entire kingdom. The weight of his words hung in the air. A sudden surge of urgency, and Logus commands, they must be stopped. The realization struck Namba and Sho fully. Their eyes widened in shared horror as they imagined how such malice could destroy the kingdom. Elsewhere, Prince Logus contemplates the next move with a confident smile. Nearby, Yogai Namba is tense, and Shu is frozen as if rooted to the spot. Shu confirms their plan and declares with firm confidence that he will stop and destroy the scoundrels. His subordinates, seizing the moment, persuade Logus, and his smile spreads into a predatory grin. Casting a sharp glance, he gives his comrades a brief command. Let's go. They reached a favorable spot in the dense forest. The three of them Tojder with the Rai creature and another giant feline were intently peering through the trees, tracking something in the distance. From another place, Haruto and Philia witnessed the consequences of that observation. Far away, a gigantic detonation thundered and a column of smoke rose into the sky. Haruto shouted in frenzy from shock and disbelief. His fuss resonates with the white wyvern Lulu. She lets out a series of frightened screams. Haruto rushed to her, urgently asking what happened. When he tries to calm his rider, Mina and Karen join him. Mina looked into the distance where chaos was spreading and decided, Reo and the others have to fight the enemy. Noticing Haruto's grim expression, Karen asks what happened. Before he can respond, the entire squad Haruto, Philia, Mina, Karen, and anxious Lulu suddenly encounters an obstacle. A line of formidable soldiers in dark armor and wolfish, fearsome helmets stands like a wall, blocking their way forward. Meanwhile, Sho reported to Prince Logus that the Gerudo group had already been found. Nama barely held her breath. Horror grew because she recognized the soldiers. They were Logus's Imperial Watch. Sho, who was addressed as Roger, stopped her and confirmed their task was to hold Gerudo and his people there, as it would be extremely problematic if Tamir and his familiars gathered again. The full weight of Logus's betrayal fell on Nama. The commander of the guard unit looked directly at the Haruto company and spoke to them directly. He stated that the heroes Yohei and Kakaru were with them, and they were already heading to tame the trouble. The soldiers of his ranks advanced threateningly, and he himself issued a stern warning. He would ask them not to interfere. He stood in a ring knot, only had the Imperial Guard tightened the corridor, but a crowd of adventurers had also gathered around. His armored ally immediately sensed that something was clearly wrong in this fight. Despite hesitation, Mina managed to calm him down. He is worried about Rhea and Othersan. She anticipated this. She and their other companion insisted on their point. Everything will be settled here on the spot. With a confident smile, Mina nudged him. Go, she said, and leaned on him. His face froze and determination flashed in his eyes. Trusting them without hesitation, he called his wyvern Lulu and jumped on her back, soaring straight into the sky. The enemy commander gawked, shouting that he had indeed managed to fly, and fiercely ordered the troops not to let him escape. Next to the ground, the armored girl faced the commander. She declared, starting a chaotic fight is a complete hassle, but the duty for the royal tomb still lies with her, so she will crush him here. The commander cut in response that this is his battle line and Warnadont show off, even if you just gain new power. As if determined to prove the opposite, more and more fighters pour out of the forest surrounding the two girls. One of the newcomers snorted disdainfully, as if to say they couldn't cope with such a number. The commander laughed arrogantly and declared that they could not overcome victory because this dead weight was holding them back. He boasted. His people were the elite who explored the middle levels of heaven, and the Imperial Guard was even stronger. The armored girl calmly placed her hand Minus on the shoulder and said she did not understand. She explained, the potions Karen brews are of the highest quality, and it is they that bring their power to the absolute peak. As if her call was caught, a gigantic creature of pure flame burst from the ground, a fire-scale titan worm. The enemy forces froze and stared upward in complete shock while she caught that smile and asked, isn't she the best, if not so? Titan tore through space with a whirlwind of destruction, scattering the enemy ranks. Covering Mina, the armored girl remained calm and said that the commander's talk about numbers was not very reliable, then ordered Mina, time to move out. Mounting the chimera worm Gath on a fiery scale the size of an ear of grain, she gave the creature direction with one decisive cry. For Gerudo, the fiery beast roars triumphantly and dashes forward, carrying both her and Mina away from the battlefield. And on the ground below, their friends can only stand frozen in silence as the spectacle unfolds. Nanba, with eyes wide open in confusion, calls Gerudo's name, seeing him break free from the fire after the devastated clearing. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Gerudo stands next to Rai. The large winged creature begins to get nervous. It whines and growls lowly, and its instincts already clearly sense a distant tremor. Turning back to the clearing, he saw the terrible consequences of the fiery summons. The bodies of soldiers trained by the wolf scattered on the ground, broken and motionless. Prince Logus appears against the backdrop of this ruin, his face twisted with rage. He immediately approaches Namba and the others, snorts contemptuously, and joins the conversation. Are they blind and stupid? Then he demands who exactly arranged this murder. In the boundless, newly formed crater, the forces of opposing sides lined up against each other. The destruction around was on a scale that simply overwhelms. Their faces were grim. Shu adjusted his glasses intently, Prince Logus wore a confident half-smile, Yohei Nanba twisted into a predatory grin, and Haruto Tsutsui's gaze was fixed with determination. While Titan Worm deployed the fiery Vagu and tore the earth with a stream of flame designated Firefall, Haruto desperately shouted a warning to Mina, and Karen recognized. Their enemy was unrestrained. Nearby, the armored warrior Lilette only confirmed her determination and said she hoped he was ready for this. Jurda's readiness met the furious roar of Yohei Nanba, who roared that he would kill them all just so they wouldn't get cocky. In response, Gerudo decided to unleash all his power, standing shoulder to shoulder with Lilette against this threat. But before he could do anything, Lilette dashed into attack, a silvery mirage that crossed the crater floor at a furious speed, her blade aimed straight at Nambu. There is no more agile arrival, so Namba panicked and began throwing up defenses one after another, several layers of shimmering magical barriers. He exhaled in shock, realizing that even with all his preparations, it was not enough to stop her. The strike shattered the barriers, a dazzling explosion of magical power cracked through their structures, and they crumbled under incredible pressure. From afar, Rei watched the aftermath. The strike hit precisely. Both her targets were immediately twisted and knocked out of the fight. Sho, thrown back, shattered his glass to pieces. And Numba, as if in response, pressed forcefully into the ground. Above, Prince Logus watched the aftermath, his face unchanged. Calmly stated, even with the ability to see the future, Sho could not evade it. The strike was simply too fast, foresight did not matter. Watching the prince intently, Haruto suddenly understood everything. Lilette knew them, that's why she hesitated earlier and didn't rush to fight. Meanwhile, Logus was figuring out the situation from his side. noting the incredible strength of the familiar and wondering if it had increased because the tamer was nearby. He watched as Prince Logus stood over the bodies of his fallen comrades, noting this eerie calm quiet march. Haruto could not hold back and openly condemned him, calling him a brainless beast for so easily sacrificing his own allies. Logus only hummed in response unmoved by the accusations. Then the prince looked away and completely ignored Haruto. He addressed Karen Hino by her full name Karen Minato and asked what she was going to do next. She looked back, confused. At that moment, Haruto mentally noted, the defeated Yohei Namba and his companion were by no means weak. Moreover, they were considered among the strongest heroes in history. His thoughts stayed in his head as he glanced at Rai. Despite the legendary status, Lilith's acquaintance cut them down without any difficulty. He knew for sure, on his side there were even stronger fighters. Logus, however, held one of his allies in complete contempt. Without looking back, he shouted to Karen across the field and cut off, saying he felt no significant strength from her and that she definitely did not belong in this battle. His contemptuous words struck Lilith, sharply responded and demanded an explanation of what exactly he meant. Logus unfolded the insult. Supposedly, Karen's value boils down to the zills that enhance power, and all she has to do is give the medicine and go home. With a deceptively sinister, self-confident smile, Logus beckoned Karen. He said that her place was not among them. Haruto's gaze sharply widened. A sudden horror struck there, illuminated as quickly as if pulled by some invisible force in the air. Karen, already in a red hood, began to writhe and walk straight toward the prince. Liliac shouted her name, not believing her eyes and completely bewildered by her friend's prank. Before everything finally spun out of control, Haruto roared, ordering her to stop and shouting for her not to move. His panicked commands only confused Lilith, and Minasi asked what had happened. The truth was confirmed by Logus's triumphant chuckle. He declared that Karen was already in his power and boasted she would die even if he gave such an order. Karen's empty, wide-open gaze became a chilling confirmation. To prove his point, he ordered her to spin around and bark. She obediently and immediately performed the humiliating actions, after which Logus turned to the stunned Gerudo group and mockingly asked if that was their level. Then he mocks them, tearing words with Karen's voice, and laughs wildly. He insists he will gather enough mana to kill them all and orders them to be silent. Mina and Gerudo look in horror, and thoughts rush through Gerudo's mind one after another. How to neutralize this skill? Perhaps at Rai's speed they will manage to neutralize him before the order comes. But how exactly to stop the skill itself remains unclear. While he is grappling with this dilemma, Mina's gaze slides over their fallen classmates, then stops on him with concern. Suddenly, determination flashes in Gerudo's expression. He announces his plan to tame carries. His strange choice of words sharply throws Mina off track. She asks what he could possibly be, admitting that she does not understand the true nature of his skill but still insists if she was already able to repel it. He clenches his fist and resolve wavers. The thought of taming Karen, just as he once did with Mina, stops him. He imagines how it could irreversibly break their relationship with Karen and perhaps with her herself. The burden of choice pulls him into doubt. Comparing his hesitation, Mina calls him by name, urging him, saying now is not the time to look back. She convinces him nothing will change between them and gives him the last push he longed for. On the bare hilltop, the decisive battle continues. The girl in the red hood calmly approaches Haruto, who does not move from his place. Far away, Prince Logus watches from Reihai's beast. Rai roars at the girl, accuses her of madness, and orders her not to move. Despite the order, he shifts his gaze to Haruto, his eyes flare with power as he tries to summon his tamed ability. In response, Gerudo strikes the ground with his palm. A complex magical sigil flares beneath him, and a whirlwind of power bursts outward to stop the prince's attack. Logus bursts into maniacal laughter, confident in his victory. He shines. If his goals are already within his power, then the skill of taming Haruto is useless. After that, he orders Karen Minato to take her hands off him. He just gives him a steady, indifferent look and calmly refuses to obey the order. Her defiance confuses Logus. He cannot believe his own eyes. Haruto, now standing next to the girl in the red hood, looks as if he is perfectly fine. The haughty expression on the prince's face disappears. He snorts and asks why he has to tell Haruto anything. Haruto calmly presses on clarifying which exact details his type of domination skill has. Annoyed, Logus cuts in, the first domination skill used must have priority. Then he is overwhelmed by a terrible suspicion. His eyes open wide as he recognizes the true nature of the opponent's power mind control. With annoyance, Logus notices this and sees. A red-haired girl in a red hood cheerfully explains that she sought the skill of evaluation and created a potion prototype to replicate it. She confirms that during the adventurers' clashes they fought, everyone was kept under the influence of mind control, and adds, Haruto needs a powerful, cheat-like version of this skill. Logos's face darkens. He realizes his anxiety was in vain. She clenches her fist and continues analyzing. It seems she comes to the conclusion, to control the target, one must exploit the abyss in their heart. She apologizes, admitting that Prince Logos's words hurt her, and that without a doubt she is the weakest among those present. Karen objects, they need her specifically. The girl in the red hood feels the power of the tamed Haruto skill bursting within her and decides to be useful from now on. Nearby, Haruto contemplates the idea of a gap in the heart. He shifts his gaze to Karen and directly says that he enjoys the time with her. He looks gently and asks, let her stay by his side forever, and at the same time this confession suddenly affects both Karen and the girl in the red hood. Her face flushes a deep red. The girl in the red hood freezes completely, not a word, and her eyes are wide open in shock and shame because of Haruto's sudden confession. She stammers convulsively, trying to fit his words into a speech pattern and prove that she has no and cannot have a private life. But inside everything is a continuous wave, and she cannot understand why Haruto suddenly became so cold-blooded. Logos cuts off the quarrel. He snorts disdainfully at their chatter and throws a question whether they really believe they have already won. When patience finally runs out, Prince Logos reveals his power and declares that he has already gathered enough mana to destroy them all. Before him flares a huge sphere of destructive energy, and the red-hooded girl looks on with anxiety. Before the spell can be cast, several incredibly fast dark projectiles pierce the air. They hit the very concentration of mana and force it to safely dissipate a flash of light. His final strike is neutralized in an instant. Logos freezes, unable to believe his eyes. Realization overwhelms him with coldness and irreversibility. They have lost. Haruto steps forward. His face hardens and he solemnly proclaims, it is all over. The defeated prince, sweating and with eyes wide open in shock, manages to utter only one word, not believing what he hears, bandits. Before he can act further, a tall, formidable figure in dark, tattered robes and a wide-brimmed hat emerges on the battlefield. She rises above the fallen Logos, looks directly at Haruto and throws a silent challenge. The sudden appearance of this unknown creature instantly stuns Haruto and Prince Logos. Their quarrel dissolves for a second. They both freeze in shared, wide-eyed shock. He and his companion freeze, stunned into silence until a stranger appears. Karen, eyes wide with anxiety, asks where this could have come from out of nowhere and notes that it emits unbearable pressure. The girl in the red hood standing next to the figure in the cloak turns around and screams in confusion. And Haruto watches as horror rises within him and realizes the impossible truth: this creature is real. From the mantle emerges his true essence, a gigantic gnarled ogre with one evil, dimly glowing eye. From the spot where he stands bursts a real gale of raw power. The air whirls into a chaotic vortex. A powerful explosion of dark energy shatters the silence. The shockwave rolls through the city. Passers-by are thrown into panic. They scream in confusion and fear as the explosion tears through the streets. Stuck in the vortex of power, Lilette wildly throws her head back and lets out a piercing scream of fear. When chaos spirals, Namba's eyes turn into void-solid blackness. A single, all-consuming command devours his thoughts: kill the hero. A little further, Gerudo and his companions see a wave of energy disappear without reaching them. The girl in the red hood asks what it was, and Gerudo grimly explains. It was the malice of the demon leaking from his seal. Malefice found new masters for himself. Prince Logos stands with a triumphant smile. Nearby, reinforced Namba and a masked warrior. He declares that demonic power has granted him strength. Two groups clash face to face. Haruto, Lilette, and the girl in the red hood freeze with shock and fury in their eyes. Logos's smile widens and he declares, his sole goal is to destroy them all. From afar, Shaw calls Namba and asks why he sided with the demon he was supposed to kill. And Namba, seized by ecstasy, dreams of power waves wash over him, and he boasts that he no longer loses to anyone supposedly familiar. He growls that he doesn't care and releases a torn burst of energy. Lilette flies away from him. He sets things right with his voice. The burning impulse now is only for one. His crazy gaze is fixed on Gerudo's determined look. With a twisted smile, Namba shouts his intention for everyone to hear. He will kill Geruton. That is the only thing that matters. He holds a position in a deserted forest, a large bladed weapon ready. Opposite, a girl in a red hood takes a fighting stance, and her own smaller scythe is also ready for a fight. Then he turns to her directly, calls her Karen Minato. Disdainfully states that, unlike Yohei, he doesn't care about bullying the weak, although there is already something more in his gazette than just indifference. In response, she suddenly surged forward and declared that she had become stronger herself. A magical whirlwind spun before her, then she unleashed a hail of crystalline projectiles, shouting the name of her spell technique, Ice Arrow. Meanwhile, the conflict rages somewhere else. Nanba, twisted with rage, goes mad in a frantic scream, shouting the names Mina and Mochizuki, roaring for her to die. Mina looks at him, her face hardening. She understands she must pull herself together. A giant fiery titan worm blocks his path, enraged at the obstacle. Namba roars, demanding the creature get out of the way. The attack of the colossal worm is not limited to Namba in front. His fiery fists crash down on Haruto, who calmly raises his hands and effortlessly blocks each strike with crystal barriers. While the students watch the screen, Namba smirks boldly with demonic confidence. He tells Gerudo that he doesn't know how wide the limits of his new power are, but it is worth nothing compared to the might of the demon he now holds within himself. Calmly replies that he has already embedded a synthesizing magic circle into the ice arrow she released. He proclaims a loud end reformats her spell into something new, synthesis conversion, Ice Legion. And from the mana still hanging in the air, a whole arsenal of ice weapons grows. The red-haired girl realizes in horror. His plan was always a two-stage salvo. Legion of ice scatters in all directions, flying into the void. He stands unharmed among the debris and cold-bloodedly tells the girl that such power is insufficient against him in his current state. She only snorts in shocked, disbelieving surprise. He rejects her efforts and turns his back, unleashing a devastating combination of his own spells. Ice Cannon, Ice Branch, and hail of icy arrows converge on the girl in the red hood screams as the avalanche of attack engulfs her completely. He is suddenly overwhelmed by a barrage of invisible blows. His body shudders and his attack is completely neutralized. His head buzzes with shock. He does not understand why his opponent does not give up. He is sure if the upcoming review combined with the enhanced body, she has nothing to resist. There is no strike he would not have time to react to. The reason for his failure becomes obvious. The girl in the red hood stands with a confident, smug smile, and around her the ground is covered with dozens of small, shining magical circles. She acknowledges his ability to foresee and, as expected, says that he quickly grasped her plan. But the realization comes too late. From each circle jumps a hair carved from pure ice and a merciless mad avalanche grows. The girl utters a spell, Synthesis Conversion Ice Legion Kawaii, in the format of a carnival horde. She explains this oversaturated attack enhanced by mana and synthesis is the perfect countermeasure. If a direct assault doesn't work, you just have to press even harder. Far away, Gerudo was completely engulfed by the ice crowds. Countless icy projectiles merge into one giant frozen rabbit body and completely encase Haruto in its form. The Red Riding Hood girl stands before her work and watches as he resists in vain. With a firm gaze, she asks whether her desired future managed to foresee this very outcome. On the battlefield, a sharp, dazzling flash of light erupts. Nearby, a girl with a red hood instantly turns abruptly, her eyes wide open in surprise at the sudden, powerful burst of energy. In the dazzling glow, the creature appears. Taking the form of a fire dragon of immense scale, a being of colossal defensive power, radiating pure energy. A mysterious figure in a robe rushes forward and strikes the fiery figure, mocking its slowness. The winged beast lets out a painful scream as the attack hits it. In response to the mockery, the girl in the hood with the red whisper suddenly shouts that the figure is too slow. A moment later, the creature shifts into a fiery scale Pegasus form and disappears. Desperately wrapped up, Vitreshchiv stared at the empty spot, unable to comprehend what had happened. She appears with a face full of utter contempt and mocks the figure in clothing, pointing to their weak attack. Her voice drips with disdain as she calls their attempts pathetic, and for a moment, the opponent is stunned by her audacity. A gloomy smile spreads across the hidden faces in the robes as they analyze her familiar abilities. They say they know the weak spots. The horse form has speed but no strength, the dragon form has defense but no speed, and the giant form has strength but no defense. Their gaze slides past the girl and catches Lael in the distance. The figure assesses the motives and concludes, this tough clash is just a diversionary maneuver. They decide, Archdemon is not yet ready for rebirth. The red girl in a hood strikes and a wheeze of pain escapes from her opponent. She declares that Archdemon does not need to conserve mana and warns them not to underestimate her. When the figure in the robe staggers back, they realize, even with enhanced power, the protection of Pegasus forms is still complete nonsense. In response, the girl declares she is going all in. The creation explodes into a colossal new form of fiery crackling trident. The figure in the robe freezes in horror. How is this possible when they hold the power of archdemons? The girl calmly denies it. The reason is simple. When the form of the Trinity lunged down for the decisive strike, it roars in response. Because it is the strongest familiar. The force of the previous blow pushes the fugitive back. He stumbles and falls a step, and a curse bursts from his lips. Nearby, a huge crater smolders there where the strike landed. Haruto Tutsui stands firm and watches the result. He freezes and shock sweat appears on his forehead as he tries to comprehend the colossal gap in power, even having the might of archdemons in reserve. Nearby, opposite him, Haruto's face remains grim and unyielding. Suddenly, red-hooded girl springs into action somewhere else. declaring an end to the bandits and unleashes a merciless barrage of attacks on a new group of convents. Haruto freezes in shock as it becomes clear who their targets are. Not monsters, but a large pack of human adventurers. His eyes widen in horror as he recognizes familiar faces in the frenzied crowd: Lilith, Namba, and even Lisa. He instantly realizes these are travelers from Eden, and he can only guess how they were even allowed in if they have already been corrupted by the archdemon's plague. The figure in the robe confirms his suspicion with a broad, mocking smile. He claims that these people were deceived by miasma, and his own mind control forces them to kill Haruto. Then he even mocks the boy, asking why he doesn't try to tame and save them just like hundreds of other people in Eden and around it. While the mockery hangs in the air, a hand harshly lands on Haruto's shoulder. It is Prince Logus. He smiles crookedly and contemptuously asks if Haruto has forgotten his previous words, since he doubts that he can handle such large numbers alone. He stands firm. Barely appearing on his sides are his two powerful familiars Rai and Reto. Haruto makes a short, firm statement. He is a tamer. The prince barely twitches. The boy's confidence shocks him. Haruto growls, reinforcing the words. He is not alone, and Rai also slaps support with his evil growl. The figure in the mantle freezes, stunned, then contemptuously snorts at the appearance of two more domestic animals. He asks what difference they can make against hundreds of controlled people. Without stopping, Haruto turns to his comrades and thanks Rai and Ridu for coming. He coldly and confidently states that he has tamed hundreds of familiars. The mantle trembles, and one visible eye sharply widens. Around is only distrust. The journeys, subdued by his mind, quickly and mercilessly extinguish numerous monstrous creatures. He continues explaining, while his opponents were distracted, he gave orders. His familiars neutralized the crowd, minimizing injuries. He adds that the controlled adventurers are not as powerful as the figure in the robe, so for his powers it is a simple matter. The antagonist in the robe can only stammer from shock, and Prince Logus clenches his jaw in irritation. Realizing defeat, the fraudulent figure lets out a guttural cry of rage. Unfazed, Haruto declares the fight over just as the allies' voice sounds a warning about rogue soldiers. In a moment, Haruto closes the distance, not with the figure in the robe, but with Prince Logus. He flies in with a punch straight to the prince's jaw, and the force is colossal. In the vast hall of the Elmond Kingdom, King Hills, Princess Philia, and someone in ceremonial military uniform watch as Gerudo and his companions are held at spearpoint by the royal guards. The king addresses the prisoners and demands if they have anything to say in their defense. In response, Prince Logus steps forward and addresses his father. He says that his sole goal is to stop Gerudo Tsutsui's plan and seize the power of the archdemon by subjugating him. Before the king can recover, Red Riding Hood bursts into the conversation and explains. In the city, people have already developed resistance to mental control thanks to her potions. King Hill's face twists with rage, challenges him head-on, asks if he believes her. The king's anger is felt on the skin. Meanwhile, Haruto brushes off any worries about their initial goal. After all, since they achieved it, everything is fine. Then the king turns to Haruto, Mina, and Karen, bows deeply, and floods them with apologies, excusing himself for the troubles caused by his foolish son. When the misunderstanding clears up, Haruto explains the court's actions. They set out to restore the magical instruments that weakened the archdemon's sealing barrier, and also to subdue the monsters gathered in the area called Paradise. Hearing this, Philia covers her mouth and immediately understands this is why the muscle was oozing. Gerudo continues his report to the king, revealing an even darker truth. Those tools were not only to weaken the seal, but also bait for monsters so that the archdevil could suck out their mana and break free. The revelation shocks the king, screams in complete disbelief. Then Haruto turns to the man in military uniform, who thanks him for the quick work, noting that those touched by the miasma have recovered without any lasting effects. Haruto awkwardly brushes off the praise, while Namba and Lilith freeze with confused faces. He smiles and solemnly introduces himself. His name is Victor, and he is the older brother of Logus. This new information spreads a wave of confusion throughout the courtroom. Haruto shows surprise, recalling that he thought Logus is the first prince. Victor clarifies, their elder brother renounces the right to the throne due to illness, so now the first prince is Victor. The burden of this family dynamic finally becomes clear. Logus lowers his gaze, his face frozen in a mixture of irritation and resignation as he quietly mutters his brother's name. Victor, on the other hand, holds a cold, composed and perhaps deliberately measured look. Prince Logus bursts with rage and complete distrust at the turn of events, declaring that it is impossible. Namba mocks and throws out, if Logus hated his brother Victor so much, he would simply have used his mind control skill on him. Haruto grimly agrees, probably that's exactly how it all works. The explanation is now clear to everyone. Victor has a unique skill: she can suppress the abilities of others. The revelation breaks the silence with a shockwave of astonishment. Philia, King Hill's, comrades Haruto, and even Logus himself react as if pierced through. Sam Logus looks stunned. He asks if this can even be true. Nearby, a worried Philia reports that her own gift of assessment showed nothing when she applied it to him, and the confusion only deepens. The girl in the red hood gives an explanation and raises the potion. She clarifies, her evaluation is just a copy brewed on medicine, not a magical skill, so it was not annulled. And she concludes, Victor's power probably annulled Philly's during her evaluation as well. With the new information, King Hill shifts his gaze to the younger Sanand. A grim realization settles on him. He concludes, Logus has already tried to use his ability to control the mind on Victor. Following his father's thread of thoughts, Victor turns and heads straight to talk with his brother. Phileas stands nearby. Victor asks Logus if he also tried to use his powers against them. While Logus is silent, the king speaks for him and attributes the attempt to Logus's timid and cautious nature. He reveals that Logus ordered Philia not to appraise him to keep mind control secret. The king also adds that mind control requires a crack in the target's heart. Gerudo's companions mocked the idea that Logus was so liked by his sister and decided he probably keeps her in submission. Angry, Logus shouts that they are wrong. He insists her feelings were real and he only ordered her not to do an appraisal on him. His anger subsides and certainty of pain takes its place. He quietly repeats that he knows her feelings were sincere. Hearing this desperate confession, Philia gasps for air. Horrible realization appears on her face. Haruto gazes at the broken prince with an expression of understanding. Logus catches his gaze and with the same handful of dignity that remains, warns, do not pity me. He watched as Logus, fallen, spoke of the poisonous doubt that comes with power, about how it is impossible to know whether the feelings shown to you are real or merely a result of skill. The prince's thoughts slipped into happier times with Philia and her friends, and he told himself, he never used force to make his sister love him, and slightly subdued the circumstances. And with despair, he clung to the belief that her feelings were genuine. This memory did not bring relief, only a painful realization of the futility of connections that can be so easily rewritten or broken by a single skill. The prince's gaze sharpened when he looked at Haruto, and in it froze the last, bitter hope that the hero would not end the same way he did. After the confrontation ended, Haruto and his companions left. It turned out, Prince Logus was secretly taken and thrown into imprisonment. While they were walking, Lilac quietly informed that Yohei Nanba, Kakaru Akimoto, and the rest of the guards received the same punishment as the prince. They are subject to an investigation to determine whether they acted on their own accord or became victims of mind control. Next, Philia added that they cannot publicly reveal the whole truth. The first prince conspired with the hero to break the seal of the Great Calamity. Victor turned to Haruto and sharply asked how he knew that the archdemon was sealed in paradise, and Victor only learned this after snooping in the forbidden section of the royal library. To this, Haruto answered simply and in such a way that something heavy hung in the air, Mephoris told us. Both Philia and Victor froze, completely thrown off balance. Friends, their shock was palpable. Victor immediately demanded clarity and clarified whether he meant Mephoris, the legendary holy dragon. They recalled, the dragon was supposedly sealed in the royal tomb because it was mistakenly taken for an evil creature. Haruto confirmed that this was true and immediately clarified. It's not that he acquired her power, no, she simply lent it to him. Victor digested what he heard and finally understood. Such a connection explained how Haruto learned about magical instruments. After his revelation, the group began weighing the consequences. Princess Philia quickly put the puzzle together. Haruto was looking for a way to cancel the tame skill. She turns to Victor and asks if his power can nullify the seal on Haruto's companions. The proposal surprises Victor, and Philia, it seems, also suddenly understands the troubling thought finally takes shape. Her companions, however, respond with a loud and unanimous refusal. Haruto quickly explains, Victor's mastery is passive, so it is difficult to cancel abilities that have already been imposed on others. Lilith adds a practical warning. If submission is undone, their overall combat power will drop, and this will not pass without consequences. Problem: after the decision is made, the group sets off away from the castle. Minai expresses concern and asks Haruto if he is really sure about his choice. He refused the invitation to stay. While they walk, Haruto retreats into his thoughts. Life in the castle would be much better, but he must responsibly weigh the monsters now under his care. Lilat walks beside him as if pondering his motivations in her own mind alone. She notes, despite his doubts, both he and the girl in the red hood still decided to go together. Lilat thinks, this may mean their loyalty is genuine, yet in the very thought, doubt still smolders. Her reflections escalate into direct confrontation. She asks Gerudo why he takes Prince Logus's manipulative words so seriously, reminding him that she was his companion even when controlled mastery was not used at all. Gerudo freezes in astonishment, and Lilith firmly replies that her decision to follow him is her own choice. Her resolute statement forces him to look for a counterargument. Mina comes to mind after all, she could manage without him. Lilith presses further, steps closer and asks why he thinks she will stay. The intonation is as if the answer should be obvious. Leaning closer with a flushed face, Lilith declares, yes, because she loves her life as it is now. Gerudo freezes, stunned, and also blushes. For a moment, the girl in the red hood breaks the silence. She points to Lilith's reddened face. Lilith quickly steps back and mutters that she was just teasing. Mina reproaches her for her arrogance, and Karen dryly notes that Lilith was simply scared. Lilith denies it again, emphasizing she values the life they already have while they continue on their path. A week after the battle with Logos, measures begin to organize the newly acquired lands. Gerudo asks Mina if she can cleanse the tree send. Receiving a simple confirmation, she releases her power. The others freeze in amazement as she effortlessly uproots the forest from the very ground, and her strength far exceeds their expectations. In an instant, the earth trembles as it tears out a huge strip of trees, leaving a bare plain where they just were. Evaluating the result, Lilith calls the group and proclaims, from now on they will develop this territory. This is truly a decisive moment. Haruto Tatsui has officially become a lord. Such development was set in motion 2 days before this. At the official meeting, Princess Philia and the Gerudo party congratulated Victor on his official reinstatement as the first prince. He graciously accepted the congratulations and separately thanked Karen for her effective potiono. He is significantly more active. However, Victor immediately clarified. His return along with the fall of Logos created new problems. Although details have not yet been announced, rumors are already spreading among high-ranking officials. He admitted that his vulnerability and the lack of Iron Fist control by Logos made the situation too fragile. Then he said that several noble persons had already begun suspicious maneuvers. The greatest threat, as he noted, was his own unclothed Duke Ayard, who now openly showed clear hostility toward him. The group digested the shocking political truth. The Duke is the king's own brother. Victor confirmed this and added that there is another dangerous player, Royce. He described Royce as brilliant, popular, and flawless, in some ways even a greater threat than the Duke. Lilith directly asked if they were ordered to remove his uncle. Victor only clarified, it would hardly be politically wise, but Gerudo cannot stay aside indefinitely. After that, he unfolded the map. The territory of Duke Ayard borders the Paradise Dungeon Forest, so they find themselves in a favorable position quite close to the royal capital. His explanation became clear immediately as soon as he said that the familiars Harutos live in that very forest. He added, they have permission, but the place is teeming with adventurers, and there have already been accidents there, so Haruto's friends are worried about the barely veiled threat. When the stage was ready, Victor made a stunning proposal. He wants to transfer that land to Gerudo so it becomes her own territory. Gerudo, Lilith, and the girl in the red hood froze without a word. Victor revealed the plan. Gerudo is to develop the forest, build a city as a lord, and become a military barrier against Iron territory. He runs into Victor and asks if the prince really expected him to just nod and agree to such a colossal matter. Victor smiles and admits it would be unfair if he didn't tell Gerudo the whole truth. Seeing this, Lilith notes that it's harder to refuse now that Victor is so honest. The girl in the red hood asks what to do next and reminds them they are not strangers to each other. With a firm look, Lilith declares she will follow her master's word. Philia enthusiastically agrees. His gaze slides over the vast, still uncharted terrain. Somewhere in the mountains a city nestles. In his thoughts he admits, these are truly desperate times. And a moment later, as he walks alongside his comrades, the girl in the red hood notices his embarrassed expression and asks what happened. Gerudo confesses his doubts. He says he is not sure if he should have agreed and admits he feels used as a political figure. In response, the girl in the red hood looks at the situation practically. She reminds that the kingdom sent a princess to his system, therefore they have their own interest and they will not discard him so easily. Standing with arms crossed over her chest, Gerudo weighs her words and admits she is right. She continues and points to his companion specifically to Beast. Rind asks if he would feel relief if they were settled on his land, rather than just wandering elsewhere. Her logic hits the mark, and Gerudo's face changes from doubt to delight as he realizes what it means. Wow. This is incredible. A mighty man with a braided headband arrives with his team and inspects the already cut-down forest. He says he brought muscles for the job but now assumes they were not needed. From afar, Gerudo and his companions watch the arrivals, and someone comments that the hero's strength is truly something else. When the group approached, Gerudo and Karen cautiously greeted each other. The leader of the masters warmly replied with a friendly "nice to meet you." They were introduced, the architect Mr. Dallin and his masters. Reinforcements were sent to them from the capital. Looking at the huge piles of fallen trees, Dallin admits he must be grateful Gerudo cleaned it all up. Lilat silently wonders how they even manage to process so much and turn it into building materials. Dallin, examining the work, decides there is nothing wrong with this. He immediately turns around and fiercely roars at his men, like hitch up and work move with the logs. Nearby, Gerudo leads his group, ordering them to use a specific clearing to stack the felled logs until they are needed. But while the work is just heating up in earnest, Gerudo, Philia, and Leela decide to join in too and take on the exhausting task of moving logs. Meanwhile, at the other end of the clearing, the student council president addresses Dalen. Specialists in construction are needed, but she is not sure if her own people are suitable for this job. One of the master's cask gets a disgusting wound on his hand. Dallin orders him to see a doctor, but Karen stubbornly intervenes and offers a homemade potion. Cask drinks it and the deep wound disappears completely. Both the master and his boss are stunned by the instant healing. The Red Shroud steps closer and declares that Karen's potion is incredible, completely different from those in the shops. Then she adds, she heard that Lord Gerudo gives orders to the monsters, but as soon as she sees Karen demonstrate everything, she decides that his wives are incredible too. The sudden announcement stuns Gerudo, Philia, and Lilat. Their words are cut off by shock. She continues, referring to the explanation of authority. Since Gerudo is noble, polygamy is allowed. Gerudo desperately tries to deny it, shouting that it is not so. Philia and Lilat blush furiously, embarrassed by the label wives. The girl in the Red Riding Hood laughs and waves it off. She says it was just a joke. Then she boldly adds that she's fine being the second or third wife. Philia immediately stiffens, muttering, no matter what the truth is, the outside world will now consider them wives. Switching, Philia nods. It's almost time other reinforcements will arrive from the capital. The confused Gerudo insists that Karen says whatever she wants, while Lilat looks at him intently and asks if he plans to add even more women to their company. He stands next to Philia, Lilat, and Karen while more reinforcements arrive from the capital. They are introduced: Mrs. Lin, the court artist, and Mr. Bidget, the farmer. Miss Lin, with a brush in hand, passionately promises to capture their noble figures on canvas, while Mr. Bidget enthusiastically expresses his amazement at the untouched, wild nature of these lands. Then the farmer lays out the first step of his plan, selecting suitable land for cultivation. He warns, the soil is so wild that plowing will be difficult. Gerudo takes it simply and briefly, thank you. At that very moment, the girl in the red hood steps forward. She takes on the task of selecting the soil, relying on the evaluative skill of her group. She also hands Gerudo the collected rare herbs and says that his synthesis skills will give them a much better result. To Gerudo's surprise, she adds that the monsters will also help plow the land. Gerudo only manages to say that she has thought it all through, and Mr. Bidget gratefully accepts the herbs. With the plan, everything is decided. Dallin rallies the workers and orders everyone to commit to land restoration. The crime meets only one shout of agreement. The hustle begins. The team, along with Ryan Redo, enters the forest, felling trees and dragging giant logs. Nearby, Philia and Lilat take a brief rest. At first, given the stunning speed, Lilat returns to Gerudo, her voice trembling with excitement. She says that everyone is incredible, and then, with concern, asks if he is really okay in this situation. He calms her with words, while thinking, without the threat of Logos, it would be difficult for people to accept him, the one who can tame not only monsters but also people. His thoughts return again to his old life as Mina approaches. He tells her that neither he nor Karen had any friends in class and now there are no ties left. He insists he has no regrets, but Mina looks at him with concern and asks if he is really okay with that. Then she presses him and asks about their friend Megumi. The girl in the red hood quietly adds, she is worried because she heard rumors that Megumi has shut herself off. Haruto brushes off their concerns and says that Megumi is strong, so her sudden appearance will only cause confusion. He insists everything is fine. Far from here, inside the castle walls, Megumi sits alone in a dark room. She lifts her head from her knees. In her gaze there is no despair, but cold and unwavering concentration. On the chaotic battlefield, a shadow beast delivers a devastating blow. The soldiers of the second squad understand their weapons do not work against this creature. The commander orders a retreat. Amid the cries of pain, you can hear the wounded being dragged away. One man in despair begs that his fallen comrades stay close. Amid the carnage, a young healer feverishly rushes to the mortally wounded soldier named Megumi, assuring him he will be fine. But as soon as she channels her power, horror overwhelms her. The wound is too deep. Her healing magic may not be enough to save him. Her despair is torn apart by the cries of other soldiers. They call her Lady Hero and beg her to heal the next one in a long, grim line of wounded warriors waiting for her help. Despite all her efforts, the soldier's life flickers. A sharp realization strikes like electricity. She is told directly that he is already gone and she must move on. The unbearable pressure holding their lives in her hands surges, not even allowing her to breathe properly. Later, away from the front line, a maid tries to calm the broken Megumi. She insists, The deaths are not her fault and reminds her that many survived only because she was there. But Megumi asks her to stop, she cannot bear the burden. The maid says that seeing other heroes might lift Megumi's spirits even a little. Following the advice, Megumi, now in her school uniform, stands in the courtyard just as her friends, including Hino, call her. They find it strange to see her here. Hearing that she was unwell, Megumi still forces a smile and insists that she is fine. She joins the group, but her thoughts seem far away. Megumi asks to call Yohei and Shu, but her friend replies that both are currently on a dungeon raid. The president eavesdrops on their conversation and adds more details. They have been on the expedition for a long time, and this is a level 8 difficulty mission with very high stakes. Then her gaze shifts to another girl, and she addresses her Harada-san. In response, Harada-san beams and joyfully announces that since dungeon raids are so tough, she will do everything to support everyone from the castle. Hino notices this scene, and for a moment she feels suspicion. It is strange to her that Harada-san behaves so friendly, especially since they have almost never spoken before. The suspicion grows as Hino mentally reviews the role distribution in the class. She recalls, Harada-san is not part of the combat raid team like Yohei. Instead, she belongs to the life squad at the fortress, so her sudden bright interest in their affairs seems even stranger. Anger stirred in her, and Hino whispered to Megumi. She finds Yohei Nanba disgusting and that his group should just go on their mission without them. Megumi picked up. Prince Logus is also currently with Nanba, so he is the one organizing the dungeon raids. Nearby, Haruto overheard and confirmed. While they are gone, the other raid teams will remain in the castle. The conversation again veered towards Harada Riko. The president mockingly called her Jericho. He was annoyed by her attempts to act cute. Hino recalled that Yohei Nanba once also hated Harada, so Nanba himself intervened, saying the situation was indeed unpleasant. Hino acknowledged her athletic abilities and combat readiness but voiced a warning. Then the president suggested, besides Nanba, Harada might have the highest combat power among all heroes. Hino agreed but added, Harada lacks something critically important. When Sho asked what exactly, Yohei Nanba answered with a single, unequivocal word: courage. After that, he explained the meaning. It is the spirit that allows one to face unknown enemies in an unknown world. His words hung in the air, and Megumi quietly pondered what happens to a hero who lacks such a basic quality. Finally, Nanba summarized. It is this courage that distinguishes them, the reason they are recognized as heroes and are respected and worshipped. In the sunny courtyard, Megumi sincerely talks with Karen Hino and convinces her. Yohei and others should not be so cold to those who clear the dungeons. Nearby by the fountain, a group of students has already gathered, among them Gerudo and Nanba. And Karen averts her gaze, with a dark expression, silently praying that one particular person never stumbles upon the hidden truth. From afar, another male student watches them and responds to Megumi's words disdainfully, no. Absolutely not. The terse reply bursts out sharply and Megumi flinches. As soon as Karen calls her by name, she instantly steps back, apologizes, and immediately assumes perhaps she misunderstood him. Karen calmly clarifies, I am not cold. The atmosphere thickens right before their eyes, the air becomes heavy with oxygen and tension. Karen accuses Megumi of contempt for the support team, saying that since she is part of the raid team, she looks down on them. The same male student who already spoke aggressively picks up and shouts at Megumi to stop acting superior. He humiliates her, growling that she is just a healer who doesn't even fight, and Megumi freezes in shock, denying these accusations. An icy, bone-piercing gaze, and Karen launches an attack. She raises the soldiers and directly asks Megumi if she allowed people to die. Picking up Karen's words, the male student grabs Megumi by the collar, hisses at her not to be arrogant, and then, referring to some time, claims, supposedly she was useless before and healing is the only thing she is fit for. Despite the threat, Megumi forces a tense smile and weakly hints that everyone as classmates should understand each other. Karen replies briefly and coldly, yes, and nearby another student aloud worries that Hino just recovered from illness and should not be pressured. In a moment of aggressive impulse, an invisible force sharply and fiercely strikes the student in the face. The sound of the blow echoes across the courtyard, and the surrounding students who witness the clash freeze in shock. He, staggering, recoils backward, clenches his jaw, and in shock whispers, no. Beside him, Karen coolly throws, what? And Megumi silently watches, muttering with grim understanding, I see. On Karen Hino's lips is a creepy smile as she lowered her gaze from her new position of power. And suddenly, the observer's mind forms one clear thought. Now this person is the ruler of the class. A male student with a headband and a large bow tie leans closer and whispers to Megumi in her ear. By the way, did you hear? He asks, nervously pressing his lips together. Megumi responds only with a confused, ha. He doesn't stop and pulls out information that feels like a blow to the head. Tsuyui and his group apparently were recently in the castle. Megumi shudders, her eyes widen in shock as she processes the news and blurts out, they were here. Her mind clears. She is alive, Mina. Her companion confirms the suspicion. Looks like it, he nods and adds that some people saw them inside the castle. Megumi, stunned by the revelation, grabs the lapels of his jacket. Megumi is overwhelmed by a wave of boundless relief. Tears of joy flare in her eyes, and she whispers that Mina is alive, then bursts into a triumphant shout. She thanks him and, teasing in a friendly way, gently calls her friend a little troublemaker. However, the male student does not share her joy. His face darkens as he looks at her, and he mutters with frank contempt, "I wish he had just stayed dead." Dead, as they pass through the courtyard, he continues dragging his gloomy train of thought. He shudders at the very idea. How can someone be turned into a familiar, well, tamed, and how does that even make sense? He twitches. Even the thought that this could ever happen to him gives him goosebumps. He recalls how after his incident Mina started acting strangely and adds in his thoughts. In his opinion, Minato was eccentric from the very beginning. His words paint a grim picture in Megumi's mind, how she will be subdued like Tutsui and driven into unknown horrors. Fear immediately overwhelms her, her face becomes a mask of terror, and she whispers her friend's name. At that moment, Mina and Gerudo appear before them. In the line, the student flinches and shouts for them to stay away, asking why Gerudo came so suddenly. Megumi, on the contrary, looks past them at Mina, and in her thoughts a cold question forms. Do you also like being subdued like that? At the construction site on his new territory, Haruto Tsutsui inspects the progress of the work. He asks if there is anything left for him to do, but he is told almost nothing. He carefully watches as the monsters diligently plow the ground, thinking they are really doing well, but he wishes no one else would clear the forest. He looks thoughtful. Princess Philia approaches with a gentle smile, hands clasped together, and asks if she may ask him for a favor. Her affection becomes clear only when the group sets off through the streets of the neighboring town. She asked them to go to the cask and recruit pioneers for the new territory. As they walk, Lilette notices quite some time has passed since they were here. She adds that she thought they would have enough help against the monsters. Here too explains simply, that's exactly the reason. Usually people gather to develop the land, but here the citizens are mostly monsters like Rai, Ridu, and Lulu. Philia echoes his words, warning, if they don't recruit people, the settlement will turn into a ghost town. She insists that citizens must be involved in construction from the very beginning, then the community will be more vibrant and won't narrow down to only what interests the hero. While she listens, Lilith silently watches Gerudo. Flashes in her mind form his images if a monster partner is outlining him. And the thought stubbornly turns. Life in an unpopular town where monsters abound makes him more like a demon lord than a hero. The group decides how to act next. Karen says the most effective way to recruit people is to advertise where the most gather. Gerudo considers this, and Mina leans closer, playfully calls him bad boy and declares that she is a woman. Their plan leads them to the Koyotai restaurant, where the waitress Lisa is extremely shocked to see them. As soon as she learns the secret that they are heroes building a new territory, she is literally bursting with joy. I'm in, and she will definitely go. With explosive enthusiasm, Lisa announces her plan to open a second Koyotai branch in their new settlement. While Lisa is still celebrating, the owner of Kodi I calmly steps forward. She looks at Gerudo without unnecessary emotion but very firmly and says directly, he can take the girl with him. She pats Lisa on the head and smiles gently, explaining, Lisa is at the age when she needs to go outside and gain experience. The owner adds, she is calm because Lisa will be under the protection of the heroes. The conversation quickly shifts to logistics. The owner points to the traveler who supplies them with half the ingredients, and Gerudo immediately understands. More suppliers are needed. Lisa immediately declares that she wants to become a city merchant. Philia suggests seeking help from the Travelers Guild, and Lilac begins taking notes as the needs grow like a snowball. Security for merchants, special requirements for the restaurant, and in their words, the full scale of the town's construction truly begins to take shape. He and his companions are launching a recruitment campaign by posting announcements on the public board in the city of Kask, while the city guard watches everything closely from the street. Within a few days, rumors about their case spread. The crowd gathers, buzzing with news. The heroes carved out their own territory. They say now anyone can enter there, and there is plenty of work for development. The news unexpectedly raises a loud response. Standing together with Haruto and Hiro Megumi, Lilith looks at the crowd and notices there is already a real commotion here. He voices his doubt to Princess Philia, worried that it looks like they are stealing people from the town. She responds with a smile and explains that mostly seasonal workers, not permanent residents of Kask, go there, adding that such a huge crowd is just proof of her popularity. His words touch on the recent history of the city. At first, people flocked here en masse to order monster hunts in a place called Paradise or to do business with hunters. But when so many people gathered, a significant portion ended up unemployed. This information leads Gerudo to a troubling conclusion, and he aloud asks if it is his fault that he collected magic tools and reduced the monster population, which is why unemployment is rising. Philia immediately objects. With fewer monsters, there are more people who need help. Gerudo sighs with relief and agrees. If so, then it is really good. When Gerudo's anxiety immediately subsided, Philia shifted attention to the diplomatic part. She said, "Since migration is about to begin, it is best to officially greet the neighboring lords," and Gerudo agreed thoughtfully. Gerudo barely began his own thoughts when Philia joyfully announces, "Everything is already settled." Haruto, standing next to the smiling Megumi and Lilith, pauses for a moment unable to find words due to her initiative. Gerudo and his companions stand before the gate and he announces the next stop. They are heading to the neighboring territory Limod. He says they will be delivered by a dragon carriage, although for now they only have a map. Gerudo glances at the small inverted Lulu and she chirps in response. Perudo cannot accept this. How can such a tiny creature possibly carry a large map when the size difference is so enormous? And just as Lulu responds to the call, the ground rumbled and exploded. Under her scream, a giant crowd of huge reptiles with rocky scales and jaws full of teeth burst out, breaking through and shocking the entire group. The countless number of creatures is overwhelming. Gerudo can only stare frozen with surprise and shock, barely whispering, not believing how so many dragons appear so quickly. While he processes what he has seen, Philia explains, these are earth dragons which they had not tamed before. She reveals that Lulu tracked them from a place called Paradise, deciding they would be perfect to pull the carriage. Taking the opportunity, Haruto asks if it would be acceptable for him to tame them. Without waiting for a response, Gerudo unleashes his power and covers the entire horde of earth dragons with the ability to tame them. The effect is instantaneous. The wild, once chaotic swarm of beasts quiets and lines up before him in perfectly even rows completely subdued. He is overwhelmed by a surge. He honestly admits to himself that the feeling of taming so many mighty creatures together is addictive. The branch, impressed, notices the distinct power of the earth dragons and orders. Send back everything except those needed for the journey to Liamadto meet the Lord. By her instructions, a mighty earth dragon was tied to the carriage and now the party rushes away smoothly, without any jerks, through wild, uneven terrain. Inside Gerudo's carriage, he becomes increasingly anxious about the upcoming meeting with each passing minute. He asks his companions whether he should change into formal attire to receive the nobleman. Philia reassures him, there will be no problems because the hero's outfit affects all social strata, so even the nobility will most likely be delighted, yet despite this, Gerudo still doubts whether it suits his current image. He listens while Hiromgumi says she saw children in the city dressed similarly to theirs. She suggests that this is why the world seems so familiar in the past. Heroes brought other cultures here. Gerudo reacts with open surprise. Inside the carriage, the conversation continues. Philia turns to him with a serious but gentle expression and directly asks him to stop addressing her with formal titles. Power? He immediately understood the political consequences. It would not look good if the royal family appeared to dominate the hero with such military power. Despite understanding, he frees clenching his hands tightly. Seeing his hesitation, Phileas advises simply trying to address her by her name. He paused for a moment, gathered his thoughts, looked at her, and for the first time without any title pronounced her name clearly and carefully. Phaea Philia. A bright, sincere smile flashes on Philia's face and her eyes bloom with joy. She quietly confirms his attempt with a simple happy, yes. Her quiet happiness breaks boundaries and spills over with boundless joy. Lilith and Megumi catch the mood and excitedly start chanting her name, which even Gerudo finds surprising. But despite the cheerful atmosphere, Gerudo feels these social maneuvers exhausting inside. Philia explains she does not mind if everything is simple, but he should not use formal addresses to other nobles. It is not appropriate to address them as you formally, and with royal authority even more so differently. Then she briefly lays out the nearest schedule for him. The first meeting is with Count Lyman. He is pro-heroes, so Gerudo can breathe easy. But Philia immediately warns, do not lower vigilance during the next meeting with Duke Aird. Lilith adds that she will support because the Duke's lands border Haruto's. The sudden confirmation of back-to-back meetings throws Gerudo off track. Gathered together, Haruto gives Philia confident smile, assuring him he will manage. Just then the carriage slows down and stops. Philly looks out the window and announces, they have arrived. The party stands before a huge mansion. Their gates open and the guard warmly lets the guests in. Nearby rest mighty earth dragon steeds. Gerudo takes the reins and gathers the comrades, saying, it's time to give it your all while they walk in circles and greet the lords. At the top of the huge stairs inside the stately mansion, an old nobleman with lush mustaches and impeccable attire greets Lord Hero Gerudo and his squad, spreading his arms and solemnly proclaiming, it is an absolute honor to finally meet. When the group enters inside, Princess Philia apologizes to the noble lords for being late specifically to Earl Layman. Nearby, Megumi is glowing. She is overwhelmed with admiration, and in her thoughts, she compares this meeting with a hero to the feeling of encountering a celebrity. Earl brushes off the apologies and kindly invites everyone to proceed to the drawing room. Following him, they take their places around the large, polished-to-a-shine table in the well-furnished room. Earl Lyman sits at the head, with Gerudo and Philia on one side and Lilat and Megumi on the other. Everyone is red-eyed. Discussion will finally begin. The meeting begins not with business, but with friendly words. Philia notices what wonderful weather it is, and Earl Lyman picks up the conversation. He says he heard that wild mac mushrooms are already blooming, and therefore they expect this year's wheat harvest to be no worse than last year's. Haruto listens to the social conversation and suddenly understands. He is surprised by these noble negotiations. He notes to himself. This is just idle talk about nothing, without any substance. His thoughts are interrupted by Lilat. She leans closer and quietly says something. She warns that, contrary to his assumption, immediately getting down to business among the nobility may appear as an unwelcome, tactless gesture. Haruto calmly catches her words and confirms the sound advice. In a moment, Earl Lyman sharply changes the conversation. Apologizing for talking too much, he adds, since the agenda was sent in advance, there is no need to be nervous, and immediately moves on to the main point: Haruto's plan to develop a new territory near Kask. Earl calls it great news and promises full support, which Haruto gratefully accepts. Earl chuckles and states that if his position allowed, he would relocate to the new territory himself. The branch indulgently accepts his generosity and confirms the capital will provide resistance in case of any possible mass migration. Inside, Gerudo sighs with relief. The negotiations are going too smoothly. Relying on his verbal support, Count Layman makes a very specific proposal. He asks if he can lend a few of his servants or knights to help Gerudo in his new endeavor. Gerudo agrees but still doubts the Count's confidence. Lyman explains, this will benefit her housework, and Leela accepts this in the agreement. Moreover, he adds such a task will also be training for his young knights, and then, waving towards his hopeful Megumi, he makes one last request. Let Gerudo please take her with him, she is a true fan. He listened as Earl Lyman introduced a young woman named Sakaha, explaining, she was not only a promising newcomer recommended by the head maid but also his adopted daughter. Earl added that since he had no children of his own, he spared no effort to raise orphans from his lands and make them future leaders. Gerudo silently processed this and quietly wondered, was it really allowed to propose such an important persona? It felt as if there was some other reason behind it. After the exchange in Lilat, a lightning-fast, shocking thought suddenly flashed through her mind. She imagined Gerudo and Sakaha at the wedding and instantly realized. Such a marriage would strengthen for Earl the strongest possible diplomatic ties. Earl, smiling slightly detached, continued. He clarifies that Sakaha is not the only person he is sending, and that Gerudo can do as they please if it suits them. When Gerudo awkwardly giggled, Lilith stood nearby, her face tense and completely bewildered by this political maneuver. After that conversation, polite calls like a seal to secure the territory, and then they proceeded steadily without interruptions. When the riders were leaving, Philia managed to notice how beautiful Sakohi was, and Haruto paused for a moment, lost in his own thoughts. The group did not stop. Their transport rumbled loudly across the wide grassy meadow, heading to the next location. In the carriage, Gerudo thought that they were met here surprisingly friendly, as if everyone was ready to support in a difficult moment. Philia saluted his good nature for the warm welcome. But the thoughts were immediately interrupted by Earl's farewell words. The last person on the list, it seems, will not be so simple. A heavy sigh sounded nearby. A memory instantly snatched from Gerudo. The stern face of the Duke enraged like an irate. Feeling the tension, Megumi boldly declared, if something happens, she will simply blow this place to smithereens. Lilat reproached her to pull herself together, although she admitted that her words lay calmly on the soul. The bravado did not have time to hang in the air. In the visible space opposite, a giant horned monster suddenly appeared, and someone sharply said, "You're joking, right?" A strict-looking nobleman holding a luxurious cane introduced himself to the gathered group as Duke Yerd. He regretted not greeting them earlier. If he had known that Princess Philia and the heroes were his guests, he would have come to them himself. Gerudo replied that it was only fair. They were the ones who should visit. Now he sits across from them at the long table. The Duke does not hold back and continues the conversation. He says he heard rumors about the 3 heroes present here and calls them the most elite among their kind. His gaze slides over them as he tries to place each one. He mistakenly calls Lilat Minadano and Megumi Karandano, but later corrects himself. Gerudo is perfectly recognized, so the Duke asks if he assessed everything correctly. Haruto cuts straight to the point, ignoring the Duke's airs. He confirms his identity and immediately says he expects their cooperation. The Duke acknowledges his straightforwardness and recalls the main point. Haruto must cultivate the forest near the place known as Paradise, so he offers his help as a neighboring ruler. Princess Philia responds with gratitude but politely insists they do not want to bother him because he is a busy man. Haruto instantly reads the hidden hint, a warning to the Duke: do not meddle where you don't belong. In response, the Duke barely nods his head and says that he is nothing compared to Her Highness, so he will wait for her request before doing anything. Tense silence hangs in the air while the two sides, without lowering their eyes, look at each other from opposite ends of the long table lit by candles. Haruto breaks the silence to clarify his understanding of the cooperation. He says, it is only a request to allow their settlers to pass and to ensure that their respective familiars do not come into conflict. The Duke silently considers what he heard. He already heard that Haruto took the forest monsters under his control. He agrees his lands are indeed richly populated and promises to order his knights not to interfere, but warns he cannot control the actions of travelers. According to this agreement, Princess Philia asks if she can also pay due respect to the local adventurers guild. The Duke agrees without hesitation and assures that everything necessary will be arranged. Philia expresses sincere gratitude. Haruto joins his words and adds that the capital will also compensate for the loss of any citizens, thus concluding the tense but successful negotiations. He and his companions continue down the street, unaware that they are being watched from a window one floor above. Duke Ayar, a noble lord, looks down and disdainfully remarks that they clearly looked down on him. Inside the Duke's office, Duke Ayard receives a report from an officially dressed assistant. The assistant confirms the intelligence is accurate. Gerudo is a rogue hero, acting independently and not like those in the palace, and has close ties with someone named Victor. The Duke silently processes what he has heard, troubled that such a person has become a lord in a territory bordering his own. Anger bursts from his quiet, focused contemplation. With a roar of despair, Duke Ayard strikes the table with force. A teacup flies off and startles a nearby maid. He growls wildly. Some Helogs is a fool who failed the previous case, and he rages about who this Vic is to appear now, then orders all the mess to be cleaned up. As the anger quietly smolders, a young woman named Sakoha gently pats him on the back. The Duke, with a hint of reproach, looks back. Reaching out for an alliance with one person is too late. And he admits to himself, since that person refused the inheritance, he has treated him badly. The name slips from his lips as soon as he realizes the consequences of that old deed. Royce, he shouts, connecting the circumstances. When Royce disappears, someone completely different will claim the throne. Sakoha interrupts his thoughts by addressing him as father and confirms that she heard the report. Sensing his irritation, she looks at everything soberly. Their opponents are three heroes with power beyond human knowledge, so for now, she says, it is wiser to stick together. She presses him further. Her gaze does not waver as she asks if they are even capable of resisting such power. The question hangs in the air, and the Duke responds with a malicious look. His face hardens, and he asks if she is speaking sincerely. The Duke's tense expression suddenly cracks. He bursts into loud, wild laughter. The sharp mood change confuses his assistant. He flinches at the unexpected outburst. The laughter fades, giving way to a look in it awakens a cunning, sudden insight, and a sharp, confident gleam flashes in his eyes. He declares that the heroes are far from a united front. He looks directly at Sakoha and reveals his true ambition. They will not resist the heroes. Instead, they will win over every hero in the capital to their side, turning the situation to their advantage. The nobleman carefully lifts Sakuha by the chin and his gaze sharpens. He dismisses the strength of their three targets, insisting that against the 25 heroes he commands, they are nothing. Then he directly challenges. He asks if she can succeed where it is hinted Royce was defeated. Without stopping at declarations, he makes a broad gesture and outlines the strategy. He will allow the targets to build up their faction, using the time needed to sway other heroes to their side. When the preparation is complete, he declares, they will strike the palace at any opportunity. Next, Sakuha's expression hardens. Ambition flashes in her eyes. She decides for herself. The territory they are building will eventually become hers. Nearby, Duke Aird only grins boldly, and it is clear he is impatiently waiting for events to unfold. For now, unaware of the conspiracy, Gerudo, Philia, and Hiro Megumi travel through villages and fields. Their large carriage is pulled by a mighty earth dragon. They are heading to a distant settlement as the journey continues. Haruto, Philia, and Megumi stand on a dirt road and survey the newly built street, flanked by impressive half-timbered houses. On the roof, a worker is hammering nails. The sound of construction fills the air as a huge castle rises in the distance. The secret of this rapid progress has already been revealed. A colossal armored earth dragon effortlessly pulls a heavy cart, serving as a living machine. Above, another worker continues his work on the roof, and it is clear how the joint labor of man and monster merges into a harmonious rhythm. Megumi cannot believe how quickly everything has grown here. Philia proudly shows off. Now this is Haruto's territory and she beams, boasting about how much has changed in just a few days while they were away. From a neighboring building, architect Dallin calls down, everything happened so fast thanks to the monsters. He praises a pair of goblins for their impressive strength and coordinated work. On the street, he joins the group. When Gerudo asks how things are, Dallin reports, he offered to build houses for the goblins but they politely declined. Dallin laughs and adds, building is fast but clearing the forest is even faster, so now they have mountains of work. In response, Gerudo orders to first take care of housing for people monsters are used to the wild nature. Dallin immediately agrees. Suddenly, a joyful reunion interrupts their conversation. Ryan Lulu rushes to Haruto, who warmly greets them. Nearby, Sakuha watches softly smiling, as if during their absence everyone has already managed to understand each other. So Gerudo's attention is drawn to a new scene, a procession of riders on large beasts resembling wolves. Gerudo and Philia stare, puzzled, do not take their eyes off the strangers who sit grimly in their saddles. The leader of the group, a young man in a white cap, greets Gerudo as his master. He calls himself Rid and says he came after seeing the recruitment in the guild. Philia notes, wolves rarely let anyone but their own ride them, and Rid just nods, as if they are simply on the same wavelength. Another of Rid's companions, a beastman with prominent ears, steps forward. They state that their beastmen, under the orders of someone named Riziz, have already patrolled and mapped this area. The name confuses Gerudo, but he thanks Rid for the help. In response, Rid only confirms his own name once more. Megumi reminds him of Philia's words. Her butler will take care of everything while they are not around, and that the first duty is to explain the situation to the heroes. Inside, Haruto shudders from surprise. He was so focused on greeting the Lord that he might not have listened at all. While his group moves further, Rid points to a huge building in the distance and explains. The man he mentioned, Mr. Riziz, is in the mansion. The name finally reaches Gerudo. The mansion itself is an impressive multi-story building in a classical style. A central clock tower and elegant fountains on both sides of the main entrance. As soon as they enter, the whole company along with the familiars freezes before the magnificent interior and aloud marvels at how it was built so quickly. And upstairs on the luxurious stairs stands the butler Risai's, watchful and patient, welcoming them all home. He explains the building will be their base for daily life and management. Rezi nods in confirmation. Everything is here, private rooms, an office, and a guest room, everything they might need. Then Rezi asks whether it is better to see Lady Philia now in her office or to rest first. He adds, he was informed that 3 familiars are special, so he decided to take care of them as well. Gerudo sincerely thanks him. A little later, everyone gathered on the balcony. Lilith stretched and admitted she was tired. Seeing this, Gerudo suggested everyone take a break until dinner, and the proposal was met with joyful approval. After the decision, Lilith heads to her private chambers, a spacious room with exquisite decor and a large canopy bed. She closes the door, pulls off her boots, and allows herself to fall face down on the soft mattress, a tired sob. Lying down, she feels a deep blush spreading across her face and hides it in the pillow. One single thought covers her: Gerudo looks so attractive. Lying in bed, Mina Mochizuki reflects on Gerudo's recent behavior. She recalls how he spoke before the other nobles with such confidence, a sharp contrast to the nervousness he had felt before. She desires him, but she doubts. Has it gone too far? And should he now take care of his own needs now that everything has calmed down? This line of thought makes her nervous. In her imagination, she sees Gerudo not as the boy she knew, but as a figure who has grown much more mature and already has the commanding appearance of a true lord. She comes to a painful realization. She feels that he is becoming someone she can no longer reach. She clenches her hand, weighing her position. Her only offer is strong magic. Meanwhile, other capable women gather around him. Philia takes on administrative matters, Karen brings potions, and Sakuha, the former lord's servant, is already heading that way. The situation feels hopeless. Anxiety spirals into a loud, panicked thought. At this pace, Haruto will inevitably end up in a relationship with someone other than her. Others also noticed how rapidly Haruto's status is rising. Yoichi Namba cynically reasons. Supposedly, Haruto is so reliable that he might simply give in under the pressure of many women, and as soon as rumors about his position as lord and hero spread, they will definitely rush to him. This is exactly what Mina fears. She firmly rejects that thought. She knows Haruto is too slow-witted and didn't even notice her true feelings, deciding that her attachment was based only on their taming. Yet despite everything, she does not back down. He is too principled to behave that way. But suddenly another troubling thought arises, a custom of this world that she cannot avoid. When her legs twitch under the blanket, she recalls. Among the nobility, polygamy is a common practice justified by the saying that great men have a weakness for the fair sex. This thought triggers a Murray-jan. She begins to imagine the future. Kurudo has adapted to the customs of this world. He presses her to himself and makes a proposal. In her fantasy, she is delighted admiring the radiant ring on her finger. Her imagined happiness lasts only briefly. Philia, Karen, Sikahand, even the hero Megumi appear and greet her, showing identical rings on their fingers. Confused, Mina asks how this could have happened, then suddenly blurts out the main question that gnaws at her. Why do nobles practice polygamy? The answer flashes in a terrible vision: Gerudo surrounded by all of them. The reason is simple: to leave behind as many children as possible. The fantasy shatters, and a small creature with wide-open eyes freezes in shock and utter despair. Her nightmare erupts into a mad peak when she suddenly finds herself surrounded by Haruto, Philia, Resizand, even the creatures Rai and Lulu. The terrible hint of living together hits her directly, and shouting in protest, she declares, "Five-way relationships are absolutely out of the question." She gasps sharply and suddenly wakes up in her usual bed, her heart pounding. She tightly clutches her chest, and a wave of relief washes over her. She sighs and realizes that it was all just a wild delirium. Illusion. Relief lasts only briefly. As soon as a new troubling line of thought appears, it tightens her chest again. She's afraid that if everything continues like this, Haruto will reject her feelings every time, like a usual side effect of Tame's influence. A plan ripens in her mind. Maybe she will try to use Prince Victor's ability to nullification to prove that her feelings are real. Determination flashes across her face, and she decides that perhaps it is finally time to truly confess to him. But her new firmness shatters instantly. She collapses helplessly onto the bed, crushed by uncertainty. A prickly thought surfaces in her mind. Karen might be somewhere near Haruto, and for this, no excuses or any magical influence are needed. From this thought, a clear picture emerges in her imagination. Karen smiling, warmly smiling next to Haruto. And her heart aches with jealousy because she wishes she could show her affection just as naturally. She tries to imagine herself as brave as Karen, but the very idea feels foreign, and irritated, she kicks her legs. No, she cannot. She understands well. Giving up the power of Tame is a mistake. And she admits a bitter truth to herself. She is not even capable of spoiling Haruto without using it as an excuse. She is overwhelmed by the burden of a new reality. They will live in different rooms, and Haruto as a lord will be absorbed by his own duties. They will see each other less often, have less time alone together. This thought presses down, and clutching the pillow, she feels a single desperate question flare up in her mind. Seriously, what should she do? In front of a huge, luxurious mansion with stately columns and well-kept grounds, a meeting is convened. Inside, Haruto addresses his companions and explains why he has gathered them all together. He makes a bold statement to assemble Philia, Lilat, Hiro Megumi, and the architect Dallin. He intends to build a house to live in. Philia quickly objects, assuring that she is satisfied and only worries that he might have complaints. Haruto immediately rejects this. Dallin correctly guesses the plan is to build everything on a cleared plot. Haruto confirms and adds that he thought other monsters might need this too. Then he turns his gaze to Dallin and explains, in his world, houses have a lot of convenient features that this mansion lacks. The architect freezes in amazement. Dallin processes the information, and his face freezes into a stone mask of incomprehension as he quietly asks for clarification. Haruto's full request becomes clear. He wants Dallin to experimentally build a new estate and reproduce unknown things from another world in it. Stunned, Dallin shouts back in protest he is being asked for the impossible. But the protest quickly gives way to excitement. A smile spreads across Dallin's face as he firmly shakes Gerudo's hand and declares that this challenge sounds like real pleasure. As soon as the agreement is made, Philia approaches Haruto and gives a gentle smile. She asks if he wants to build a house from his original world because she feels something is missing here. In response, Haruto can only give a shy laugh. On the side, Lilat and Hiro Megumi observe everything and consider the situation. Megumi says, there is enough here to live, but the whole system relies on everyone being able to use personal magic, a sharp contrast with Haruto. Huddled around the table, Haruto throws out items from his world: a phone, a gas stove, an air conditioner, a washing machine, and explains what infrastructure each of them needs. He says that every house had gas, electricity, and water, and communication lines were also laid. Lilat can't take his eyes off the air conditioner, and Dalla remarks that magic could supposedly make gas and electricity unnecessary. Haruto clarifies, water was kept underground, but electricity and communications came from central facilities. After this story, Hiro Megumi asks why the heroes living in the castle never mention such amenities. Philia replies that the servants in the castle handle all needs, so personal comfort items become less necessary, although she adds that there is a large public bath in the castle. Haruto confirms that they did not talk about Thais, especially about something private like a personal bath. Lilat listens and thinks about how deep the knowledge of these heroes must be. This can change their world. But at the same time, it is not something they invented, but something they inherited. Predator Beastman with cat ears steps forward and suggests inspecting the mountains for ore veins. Gerudo praises the idea and agrees. Then he adds another task, to check the northern mountains for hot springs because if found, he plans to pipe them to his new development. In the distance, Duke endures a sinister Smilind resigns himself in anticipation. He is certain, a clash with the Haruto faction is inevitable, so he sees it as an opportunity to strengthen his own military power. He even likes the prospect of future conflict. His cunning expression sharply contrasts with Lyle's gaze firm, unwavering. The idea of a dreamy house with a hot spring makes Gerudo visibly shine with joy, but the excitement is immediately grounded by a question raised by Hiro Megumi. Do they even have enough money for such a grand project? These words make Philia freeze and weigh her assets. Counting expenses only in her thoughts, she concludes that the new estate and the development of the hot spring will be extremely expensive, almost certainly exceeding the subsidies provided by the castle. Looking at the landscape next to the worried Philia, Haruto realizes another problem. He says, besides construction costs, they will also have to hire new staff. Seeing Philia worriedly burying her gaze, she asks if he already has a place to channel such funding. Without hesitation, Gerudo confirms and names the exact target, Royal Tomb. He leads his party Philia, Lilette, Hiro Megumi, and rise straight into the maw of a colossal cave shaped like a skull. Before entering, Gerudo declares his intention to go in and claim the pure rewards he was unable to obtain earlier. Before the luxurious gates of the royal capital, a young nobleman with light hair and a gentle smile places his hand on his chest and solemnly introduces himself. Royce, the eldest son of Duke Yerd. In response to his greeting, the students from another world-respected hero Espo respectfully, lowering their heads. Royce addresses everyone and says he is pleased to meet them. The students begin to whisper buzzingly. One girl notes that he is handsome and would prefer him instead of Prince Logus. Megumi quickly concludes, if Duke Aird is the king's younger brother, then Royce is probably also of royal blood. Next to her brother, Princess Philia confirms the guess Royce is their cousin. One of the other heroines, a girl named Riko, glides a cold, calculating gaze and suddenly understands everything. He is the king's deceased. She freezes, holding her back straight, and wonders if she can somehow win his favor. Then Royce approaches her directly. On his face is a charming smile. He asks to be called simply Royce and her hero Riko. She stammers and babbles. Wouldn't adding the honorary Sam be too rude for properly greeting him as Royce Sam? Her thoughts flare up with excitement. The fact that he knows her name throws her into boundless, happy guesses. She wonders if he has already fallen in love with her and decides her recent performance as a good saint for Victor should also reach Royce. She casts a cunning glance toward Victor, who looks back with a confused face. Riko silently makes it clear. In his thoughts, he apologizes to Lord Victor and declares to himself the decision to transfer his feelings to Royce. Her conclusion is simple. She wants to be loved much more than to love someone else herself. As Megumi's thoughts quiet down, she steps forward and interrupts the moment, directing her gaze at Royce and asking what brought him to them. His charming manner suddenly falters. Royce is momentarily confused by the direct question and begins to stammer apologies in a trembling voice. Nearby, Karen Hino watches him with an irritated face and says that she was just about to ask the same question. From Karen Hino's side, she involuntarily organizes the picture neatly in her thoughts. She immediately sees Hiro Rikoth, very one who took the leader's place, although she has no real achievements behind her. Instead, Hiro Megumi is the possessor of rare holy magic, and she became the key figure in Shadow's defeat. Karen was then certain, in their team, the leader is Megumi. As Royce begins to press on that same observance, he takes Riko by the handon. She involuntarily flinches. He says there is no special reason for the visit. He just wants to meet everyone, but at that very moment his true motive surfaces. If he can influence the leader, then he can control the entire group. His words fall exactly as he intended. Riko blushes and looks completely confused. Royce maintains his charming smile and casually emphasizes what he meant. Of course, he wanted to meet all the heroes. The declaration rolls like a wave of excitement among the gathered students. They burst into applause, choking on exclamations of adoration for this noble, handsome man. In the chatter, Royce moves closer to Riko, notices that they are almost the same age, and says he hopes they can become friends. Riko, covering her face with embarrassed shyness, can only quietly manage to say, yes. On Royce's face is impassiveness, but inside he bitterly grumbles. He has achieved nothing even close to her accomplishments. Meanwhile, Royce watches Victor from afar, a barely noticeable confident smile on his lips. He knows. Victor will see through his manipulative intentions, but he is equally sure Victor will not be able to refuse him access to the heroes. He thinks that despite any suspicions, gaining the favor of this group of heroes is not that difficult just as his father asked him. His gaze slides again to Rico, who adores him, confirming, the task will be easy. But not everyone is easy to fool. From the crowd, Karen Hino watches, clenching her face in gloom and holds only doubts in her mind. She wonders if these heroes who are so easily confused will really stand against Haruto and his formidable team. Victor's thoughts run alongside Karen's thoughts. He recalls a brief flash he caught during Haruto's party in their country. The memory is vivid. He felt an unstoppable, undeniable power flowing from them. Him clenches his fist inside. A clash of thoughts ignites. An alliance with the heroes of the royal palace weighs little against such power, but he forcibly silences these thoughts and sharply strikes his fist on the ground. No, there is no room for doubt in his father's words. He smiled at the newly summoned heroes, and in his gaze was calm confidence. But inside, the decision only hardened. He swore to himself that strength would gather such as to defeat the Haruto faction, a power he did not know. And it was this faction already lurking in the darkness. Haruto, Lilith, Beast Rai, and Hiro Megumi, their faces frozen with stern determination before the impending clash. In a deep cave rises a gigantic arch. A pale stone slab, like the gaping maw of a colossal skeletal beast, and its fangs' jagged teeth promise a passage into the darkness beyond. Inside the chamber, a gigantic reptilian creature watches as its sharp teeth barely show, while it emits a low, deliberate growl straight into the depths of its space. The terrible sacred dragoness Mephiris addresses the entire gathered group, noting, Haruto and his companions Lilith, Ridu, Rai, and Megumi look different, as if for some reason they have changed since the last time they met. She continues to closely assess them, acknowledging that their strength is growing, and asks if they managed to conquer the dungeon called Paradise. Mephira correctly guesses, they did not reach Ogre, but they did retrieve and restore magical artifacts. Seeing their achievements, Mephiris declares that their power has grown to the point that they will likely handle even Calamity class monsters. These words immediately catch and grip the entire group. The gaze stops on a small white squirrel Lulu, and she quietly gasps. Mephiris throws a few words to the surprised Gerudo, saying she tamed a very interesting creature. While Haruto untangles what exactly she means, Mephiris reveals the truth. Lulu, she says, survived the rainbow dragons. And from these words, a colossal meaning suddenly expands to incredible proportions. The rainbow dragon commands the power of the heavens, controls the colors of the rainbow, and grants the earth and all local wildlife great fertility. The group is engulfed in silence. Severion is simply knocked off their feet by the revelation. Mephiris fires the last, ultimately shocking detail. Lulu is a divine beast, a creature that may one day gain power equal to her own. Haruto, finally realizing how serious everything is, voices his concern and asks if it is really safe to tame such a creature. Mephiris just laughs. He says he has already tamed her sacred dragon, so worrying about Lulu now is completely pointless. He listens while the holy dragon, Mephiris, explains. Although Lulu's potential is limitless, dragons grow slowly and will not reach their power level anytime soon. But Lulu clarifies the synergy between Haruto and his tamed one will accelerate Duivern's development. Long determination pushes Haruto forward. He declares that they will do everything possible together. This is picked up by Lulu's fiery chatter. After she figured out the nature of the rainbow dragon, Mephiris's attention shifts. From her sealed throne, she looks down at the small group and accurately guesses, they did not come here just to report on the status. In response, Gerudo voices her dream. They clear the forest near the settlement Paradise to become lords of the earth, so he wants to take even more treasures from her stash. Mephiris understands and agrees, magically pulling out part of her wealth so he can start. After thanking her, he expresses gratitude and she gives a simple warning, but don't forget. She continues the thought and says, becoming a lord is normal, but he must not forget to keep honing his own power. Mephiris gives him his strength so that his taming buffs will eventually give him the power to break her crystalline seal. Her words hang in the air. Gazing at the sky, Haruto quietly accepts her condition, murmuring his understanding. In a moment, just as they find themselves before the granted treasure, Philia gasps for air, her eyes widen to the limit from complete shock. Her love is shared by all party members. Before them is a mountain of shining gold, jewels, and priceless artifacts, so Philia can only snatch a comment about the colossal, simply incredible amount. Haruto stands in line near the entrance to the treasure vault, a skull-shaped passage, and immediately calculates the logistics. They cannot keep all this on their territory, and selling it all at once for cash is also unrealistic. Philia suggests a way out, asks if it would be okay to leave only what is necessary and hide the rest in the royal vault. Haruto agrees, a good idea, and thanks her. As they continue to gaze at the endless hoard, Lilith notices, this treasure is worth more than the entire royal treasury combined. The scale of wealth is so insane that Haruto literally feels his stomach twist up to nausea. Having taken command, Philia approaches the royal palace guard. She says she will return later with appraisers and jewelers and demand their escort. The guards officially accept her order. And no matter how decisively she insists, Philia still worries just in case. She admits to herself that she is not even sure if the entire royal budget can bear such expenses at all. When a little later comes, the princess is suddenly thrown into a shudder. Megumi suddenly appears at her window. Philia greets her warmly, calls her Lord Megumu, and asks how she feels. With an energetic wave, Megumi declares that everything is fine, but her fiery temper quiets as soon as Philia, sensing something is wrong, asks if something has happened. Megumi becomes embarrassed, fidgets with her hands, and tries to find words, but Philia again meets her warmly, again calls her Lord Megumu, and again asks, "Is everything okay?" In the magnificent castle, in a long corridor, a girl named Hiromgumi approached Princess Philia, who was sitting. She inquired if the princess had seen Mina. Megumi quickly blushes and stumbles over her words, correcting her answer. She says she heard a rumor. Mina was supposedly in the castle, so she just decided to ask, but a heavy anxiety still remains on her face. Walking together, Megumi explains that she was helping with a project. She adds, Lady Mina and others are now developing some land. This news noticeably impresses Philia. The princess stops her true anxiety on her face. Philia gently tells Megumi not to hesitate and to reach out if she changes her mind, promising support. Fears only grow, so Philia directly asks if Mina feels okay. Megumi lowers her gaze. A sharp, anxious expression appears on her face as she finally begins to answer. She confirms that Mina is fine, but inside a darker conclusion rolls. Megumi imagines that she is being tamed by Haruto Tsutsui, as if thrown into hard work, and comes to the thought that Tsutsui is a cruel master. Megumi's confidence grows stronger. She admits, progress is thanks to Mina, but it hurts her to see her friend carrying a lot of unfamiliar work alone. Megumi clenches her fist and decides that Tsutsui is to blame for everything. But Philia smiles softly and calmly, and by that completely contradicts her conclusion. The princess says, on the contrary, Mina looks extraordinarily happy. Megumi remains stunned by this look. The princess continues, yes, work is a hard task, but she has seen how Mina diligently works side by side with Lady Karen and the craftsman, fully immersed in the affairs. Frozen in place, Megumi still wavers as if she just absorbed a blow, and Philia with a gentle smile sums up. Mina is happy to work on this project together with Lord Haruto, so let Megumi digest this amazing news. The heroine Megumi weighs every word in her head, listening to Princess Philia. A subtle, understanding smile slides across her lips as she recalls her friend. This is exactly how she imagines that sacrifice like Mina. Eventually, Megumi accepts. Mina is happy. Her joy immediately clings to one figure. The smile disappears as soon as the realization becomes firm. Mina is in love with Tsutsui. Princess Philia, noticing that something has broken inside Megumi, gently informs. Lady Mina was worried about her. She heard that she feels depressed. Megumi freezes. Philia continues. Mina hesitated to arrange a meeting because when everyone thinks she is dead, she was afraid it would only lead to chaos. But Philia does not back down and encourages. Now that Megumi knows the truth, she definitely should go to her. Megumi quietly refuses. She clarifies that she understands but is not ready yet. And while she speaks calmly, inside she thinks, Mina is too kind. If Mina saw her like this, she would feel obliged to stay close. With new determination, Megumi makes a vow. She will go to Mina only when she becomes a person near whom Haruto can be safe. She asks Philia to wait. Meanwhile, near the newly built building, Lisa bursts with excitement and declares that the second Coyote Eye is already ready and it already has a client. Nearby, Peruto, standing together with Karen, cannot believe they managed to build everything so quickly. Karen gives him credit, calling him Big Bro. Their celebration is interrupted by a voice. Someone has come to see them. Haruto, Karen, and Mina turn together toward the sound, surprised. He asks who it is. Outside, Lisa urges them on and explains that the guest has been waiting for 3 days. Someone else shouts that the Lord has returned. The group looks up at the stairs. On the platform stands a young man. In elegant attire, he smiles from above and nods to them, saying that he finally managed to meet them. Then he solemnly introduces himself and immediately looks straight at Haruto. His name is Royce, the eldest son of the house Dukuya. He has come to greet hero Haruto. A cobblestone street winds through the town, where cozy half-timbered houses stand. Somewhere far away on a hill, a majestic estate towers above the horizon line and seems to look down on the settlement from above. Footsteps echo dully off the polished wooden floor as someone crosses the threshold of one of these buildings. Inside, Haruto and his companions Philia, Mina, and Karen are caught up by a young man in fine clothes. He waits for them at the bottom of the stairs and greets them. The man extends his hand, his face confident. He again names himself Royce, the eldest son of House Yerd, formally addresses Haruto as Lord Haruto the hero, and says he is glad to meet them. Sitting at the table, Royce tells Gerudo that it is an honor for him to finally meet. He has heard a lot of rumors about his popularity. Nearby, Rai lies calmly on the floor. Then Royce continues assuring that he has no intention of comparing himself to them, but still honestly admits, what he has seen is truly impressive. Royce raises his gaze through the window to the monsters working outside. He says, even if he had read reports, seeing it with his own eyes how they conduct shore fortifications and construction is incredible. And he adds that the display of power is truly worthy of a hero, praising the strength of taming. It seems praise wins over Karen. She is so pleased when she is sincerely praised. In contrast, Haruto's expression is skeptical. She whispers that Royce is obviously mocking. Haruto himself is silent, and his facial expression is wary. Royce shifts his gaze to Haruto and asks if he has a secret of taming or specific conditions for creating familiars. He notes, such a bond of trust is impossible with ordinary warhorses or drakes. He suggests that it might be mutually beneficial. Haruto considers everything, but a deep suspicion still freezes in his mind. It would be rude to simply ignore the question. Meanwhile, Royce gathers data. He explains his method to Royce, immediately clarifying, this is a type of contract. Monsters above all protect their own safety. In return, they allow themselves to be tamed. He promises them prosperity. In response, Royce bursts out laughing sharp, piercing, causing Gerudo to flinch. He silently wonders if Royce himself misspoke. Later, the young nobleman succumbs to a wave of merriment and declares that he understands everything. Royce's laughter subsides, and in a moment genuine admiration breaks through as he says, Gerudo's philosophy is beautiful. Royce admits that he previously thought taming was only about subjugation, so now he is impressed that Gerudo prioritizes the monster's prosperity. The unexpected praise throws Gerudo off balance. He is left speechless. Kara and Mina, watching from the side, immediately see Royce's reaction is not sarcastic. It turns out he is truly impressed by Gerudo's words. Despite apparent sincerity, Gerudo remains cautious and reminds himself, Royce is the son of Duke Ayard. Philia, however, looks differently with more hope, wondering if this young lord can really be a good person. Eventually, Royce changes the subject. He looks out the window and says that with the hero's appearance, they now have to consider this disaster. Then he turns to Gerudo and asks if he has any information. Gerudo answers no. Inside, Royce himself had to admit, at least in appearance, he does not look like an evil person. The young nobleman lays out the political complexities. The kingdom maintains such a powerful military force as the heroes only because there is a threat of catastrophe. He admits, the situation is far from ideal. The catastrophe has not yet been identified, so pressure is mounting both internally and externally from their own people and from abroad. Gerudo can only agree. Seizing the moment, Royce announces the decision of House Aird. They will throw all their strength into investigating the disaster across the country, even touching the hero base in Eden with permission. Gerudo is shocked by the very proposal. He understands that then the powerful faction, possibly opposed to the royal palace, will operate without restrictions. He doubts the safety, but Royce Cowley orders, first get permission from the royal palace. When the foundation was already laid, Royce addressed the gathered students and declared that for the sake of all, House Yerd will join the investigation of that catastrophe. He promised, as soon as the threat disappears, he wants to help each of them return home. His words were met with cries of delight and adoration. Classmates saw in him a calm savior. Duke Yerd watched everything with a barely noticeable, knowing smile. Nobleman with slick back hair and a goatee, Duke Yerd smiles ominously confidently and announces that he has already obtained the necessary permission for his plans. As soon as his statement was made, he extends his hand to Prince Logus. The latter accepts the gesture just as confidently, without hesitation. The prince proposes to unite their forces, and nearby his assistant Victor is frozen with an expression of complete shock. Their hands clasp firmly in a handshake. The agreement is sealed. Naivniak solemnly declares that everything they are about to do is for the kingdom of Elmen. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Haruto consults with the hero in the red hood, Megumi. Haruto says he felt something strange, and Megumi confirms his suspicion. The duke has already made political moves right in the royal court. Nearby at the table, Princess Philia and her maid Lisa listen attentively. Haruto unfolds an explanation. His skill of appraisal on the duke did not work at all. Megumi snorts in surprise and clarifies whether the ability simply failed. Haruto rejects this assumption. If it were an ordinary nullification like in Prince Victo's, his enhanced appraisal would still have worked. And he reaches a grim conclusion. Royce, that man, has a unique and mysterious ability that makes appraisal completely meaningless. Somewhere in this other place, a young noblewoman named Sakaha stands by the window and watches as a carriage departs. A faint smile touches her lips, and she quietly admits to herself that her last guest turned out to be too troublesome. The smile instantly fades, replaced by a look of stern appraisal. It is strong, and its position is too reliable. Such a one is not easy to deal with. Her gaze slides over her own, lands a territory teeming with monsters. Sakaha sighs heavily and bitterly laments that against such creatures her knights will not even have time to fully turn around, let alone cope with them, much less with ordinary goblins. After this, she imagines Haruto, Megumi, and Philia, and a wave of fear washes over her completely. She realizes that even without the threat of monsters, these three alone are capable of crushing the military forces of her territory in an instant. Next to her peers, Sakaha presses her palm to her forehead and feels cold sweat. She doubts whether she was really called to fight such incredible power. Of course, her appraisal helped accurately read Hero Haruto's party, but Sakaha anxiously realizes something else: she has not yet applied this skill to other heroes in the palace, so she does not know how powerful the force she will have to face will be. She considers options, and on her lips barely trembles a thoughtful, fragile smile as she touches her chin. Her reflections harden into determination. She forbids herself pessimism. She has already been convinced her skill is effective against them. With this knowledge, she clenches her fist and finally gathers the last fragment of her plan. Only one thing remains: for Hero Haruto to use his tamed ability on her. She raises her gaze to the sky and throws herself a confident, self-satisfied smile in the mirror. This part will be the hardest to implement. Meanwhile, somewhere there Megumi's face becomes stern. She recalls the strange feeling she experienced. She explains, in the territory of air, the atmosphere suddenly broke off as if it never existed. Gerudo does not recall anything like that, but Philia confirms, and she also felt a strange presence there. Megumi connects this with her previous mention of an unexplored dungeon in this territory and concludes, the investigation must start from there. While the group makes a decision, her solitary figure, swaying, approaches a small village and immediately draws the attention of the local farmers. The peasants gather around the man, recognize him as a traveler, and notice his broken state. They ask if he is okay and if he came from the dungeon, but he only croaks a desperate plea from his chest to take him to the doctor. But suddenly the traveler shudders all over and he vomits a thick, hideous liquid. One of the peasants utters a scream of horror. But immediately after that, the man falls unconscious. While the villagers panic, one shouts for help and another holds the traveler who has fainted, confirming they are indeed taking him to the doctor. One of the peasants intercepts the victim, and he, in despair, tries to hold him and calm him down. "Stay with me, you will be fine," he pleads, while another peasant with a face twisted in horror rushes through the whole village shouting to call a doctor. The traveler's misfortune begins in a desolate, devastated land. Under a gloomy sky rises a monster, a mound-like structure that oozes and trembles with heat. It is guarded by the skeletons of creatures that perish quite nearby. Gerudo, Philia, and their companions Ryan Redo stand next to architect Dallin, admiring a large modern-style house built on the forest edge, with the capital's spires shimmering in the distance. When they come closer, Philia smiles happily. Here she will be able to live very close to her familiars. Dallin asks again if it is really acceptable for the manor house to stand in the middle of the forest, and adds that work is still ongoing inside. She jumps forward and calls Gerudo. He picks up her words. Dallin looks closely at the group. Being among such a powerful fighting force, this place is safer than any fortress. Silence shatters into pieces. Haruto turns around and sees Philia, Lilette, and Megumi with frightened faces rushing straight towards him. Philia shouts that something terrible is happening in Yard territory. Somewhere far away in the Hall of Grandeur, the noble woman Sakaha leaps up and bursts inside. A mask of despair on her face, and she begs the heroes, "Give us your strength." Her frightened scream, "What?" echoes down the corridor as she runs forward, scattering a group of students in uniform. In the royal hall, King Hills jumps up from the throne because of a report he had previously ignored. Royce says it seems the plague nest has been activated, an unexplored dungeon. The king orders, "Inform the guild, go and clear it out," but Royce replies the guild has already raised the alarm. The king waves off the panic as a usual quarrel and returns to what he considers more important: subduing the nobles. Royce confirms everything is going according to plan and adds once the palace heroes are defeated, they will gain the strength to take down the palace itself. Their plans are interrupted by a scream, and Duke Ayard's servant rushes in calling for his master. Duke Ayard demands an immediate answer about what happened. The assistant, trembling with panic, reports, "The scout sent to the plague nest has returned but mortally wounded." Gasping, he grabs air and delivers the verdict. "Giant volumes of miasma are pouring from the nest, and it is already destroying the surrounding villages." Gazing at the image of the flyagric bird, the source of this corruption, Duke Ayard solemnly and without hesitation reaches a terrible conclusion. His lands are doomed. He orders an immediate entry into the plague den to root out the source of the miasma to stop the outflow. The Duke bows low to the gathered students and again implores their strength to save his territory. Nearby, Princess Filio stands with closed eyes, confident that the connections she has built with the heroes over the past month will finally work. Even the unexplored dungeon will become submissive. His request is instantly met with a pause and hesitation. The student chatter dissolves into whispers. What deadly traps does the plague nest hide? Someone recalls from a book threat level 7, so the entrance will almost certainly lead to a direct confrontation with its boss. Hope on Filia's face fades as she sees their hesitation. Hearing the princess's growing anxiety, Sikaka leans in and begins to explain. She tells Filia, heroes are not as eager to fight as she thinks. Their country has not known war for decades, so they have developed a strong aversion to clashes and injuries. Sikaka adds, although Hero Yohei may have gone forward before, now everything is different. Now this revelation pushes Filia to action. With a desperate cry, she rushes forward and grabs Hiro Riko's hands. The student flinches in surprise. Then Filia tightly squeezes him, her voice trembling. She begs Riko directly, calling him the current leader of the heroes. She asks to lend them strength, convinced if Riko agrees, others will definitely follow him. Nearby, Royce watches this desperate plea intently. Riko's answer is quiet but firm. Her face is soft, almost gentle. She closes her eyes, apologizes, and says directly that she cannot help. But the refusal hits Filia like a blow to the body. Her eyes open wide in disbelief, and a single moment of shock freezes on her face. Hope crumbles right before her eyes. Riko then unfolds the thought, explains that she is good and not for battle, but gladly heals those who still go to fight. She moves closer with a sly smile on her lips and whispers that she only does this with Royce. Filia freezes, completely confused both from refusal and from that strange, too close remark. She stammers, "Wait,